Anna Hoffman.
Hey friends, I'm Nikolai.
Hi, I'm Mustafa Toroman.
Hi, I'm Tanya Janca.
Hello.
And I'm excited to be the speaker at Azure Summit 2021.
It's a fantastic event that will be 11 days live streaming,
where more than 100 speakers from all over the world.
I'm excited to speak at Azure Summit about Power BI and Synapse Analytics.
And I'm going to talk about security.
And also a Microsoft MVP for Azure.
I'm speaking at Cloud Summit about automated release of .NET application.
And the best part is that this is a free event.
Come join me live at Learn TV on September 17th.
Come join me live on Learn TV on September 14th.
Come join me on Learn TV on the 14th of September this year.
A bunch of other Microsoft and community speakers.
So if you want to learn how to secure Azure, come to my talk.
Join us, it will be a lot of fun.
See you there.
See you there.
See you there.
See you there.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Cloud Summit 2021. I'm your host Stephen Simon and we are back with another part of Cloud Summit. What an amazing first 4.5 days we have had. Looks like we have already covered the entire ecosystem of Azure, but there's a lot more to come. And I see there around, I can see the number, there are around 700 people watching us live from different platforms. We are streaming it on C# Corner, we are streaming it on C# Live, we are streaming it on LinkedIn, we are streaming it on Learn TV, Microsoft Developers YouTube channel, and a bunch more destinations. And if you're someone who's joining us for the very first time, I've been looking in the comments. You all are very kind to each other, and that's all we want you to continue to follow code of conduct. And also 3 contests that's always going on, that whenever you ask a question to speaker or share your thought in the comments, please use #Cloud Summit, and we'll make sure that we pick some lucky winners towards the end. That's kind of lucky draw. And please feel free to go ahead and take a screen grab, take a selfie, be creative, tag us on social media at Cloud Summit Live, both on LinkedIn and Twitter, using the #Cloud Summit, and we'll make sure that we pick winners from each social media destination towards the end of the day. Having said that, I'm really excited to go ahead and welcome the keynote speaker of the day today. She is Anna Hoffman. She's going to talk about data and applied scientist and program manager at Microsoft. I had the opportunity to host her a couple of times in the past, not a couple of times, at least 3 times in the past, but I'm always very excited to host her. And I know I've already taken 5 minutes in a session. So let's go ahead and quickly bring Anna to the Cloud Summit 2021. Hi, Anna. Welcome to Cloud Summit 2021.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And that intro video, I feel like every time you add some new gems of photos.
Yeah. You have been enjoying summer, so we're gonna update it when you host for the next time. Thank you so much, Anna, for accepting the invitation. I really appreciate it. We have had some amazing session around Azure SQL, both from the first day, second, third, fourth, and I'm really looking forward for your session, for your keynote on Azure SQL. I'm gonna quickly share your screen and add it to the stream. Everybody can see it. And the next 25 minutes is all yours, and we're gonna do chit chat towards the end of your session.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Simon. And thank you all for joining me today. It seems like there are a lot of people joining in from wherever you're joining in from, wherever you're streaming from. Really appreciate it. If you want to add any comments throughout, I can see them. So I would love to see any engagement you might have. Just a tiny bit about me. My name's Anna Hoffman, and I work on the Microsoft team focused on Azure Data and Azure SQL and SQL Server. We're going to be talking about SQL from edge to cloud and how some of our customers are really kind of modernizing their existing infrastructure as well as building new exciting applications. And of course, we are all familiar that in this day and age, the ultimate tool is data. And over the past 12 months, we've all seen, well, really more than 12 months, we've seen a ton of organizations undergo digital transformation at record-breaking speeds. And with our global situation, being virtual and being ready to adapt to anything is very important. So for the course of this session, I want to take a look back in time, talk about SQL Server, how far we've come, and where we're going next. So let's go back in time, back to a day where I don't even think I was alive, for the first version of SQL Server, where we started on desktops. Now, over time, we cut our teeth as the #1 department server database, and then we gained a reputation with enterprises because of our ease of use and price performance. In 2008, we went boldly to the cloud as the first platform as a service database, and as the years have gone on, we've also embraced new operating systems and added new capabilities, for example, for built-in machine learning, for IoT scenarios, and more, really becoming a data platform as opposed to just a database. And all the while, we've been using the same SQL proven engine. We've been working on it, we've been enhancing it, and we've been bringing you all these different flavors of SQL. And we've come a long way. Today, the 98 of the top Fortune 100 companies are using SQL Server today. And while many of these organizations are still running SQL Server at kind of the core of their business, they've also started to adopt new application scenarios and new types of databases, to which Azure Data Services have been really great for building on that innovation and what we continue to do as part of our SQL strategy. Really, at the heart of our strategy is that SQL engine, that proven SQL enterprise engine. And we're bringing SQL from edge to cloud, including your T-SQL skills, your favorite tools, and everything you know and love about SQL. We want to equip you to reimagine the art of what's possible. So for the rest of this talk, I want to focus on some of the latest enhancements we've made to these 5 SQL-based offerings. And more importantly, I want to show you how these enhancements are helping companies on their journey of digital transformation. At the end, of course, I want to share a little bit of a sneak peek of what we're planning to do next, so I hope you will stick around. So let's start with Azure SQL Edge, which is our newest addition to the family of SQL-based products. It's going to offer the full power of SQL Server running at the edge, along with built-in capabilities for streaming, time series, and artificial intelligence. Now, I want to look at an example by a customer we have called 3M. Now, 3M is a brand that is a very familiar household name because it's unusual to find a work desk that doesn't have Scotch tape or Post-it notes on it. 3M produces over 60,000 products in various categories, including the N95, which has been really instrumental in our fight against COVID. Now, our team partnered with one of the US manufacturing plants and the 3M Corporate Research Lab to improve predictive anomalies. So this plant's network connectivity was very limited. Therefore, it was difficult to gather data and then transfer the data and then make predictions and send it back to those devices. The team decided to move to Azure SQL Edge for all the processing and artificial intelligence. So imagine the full power of SQL Server with AI and time series capabilities because we integrated it with Azure Stream Analytics and Azure Machine Learning Services, running on these tiny little edge devices all across the plant. Now, this really helped them with network connectivity because Azure SQL Edge allows you to run in a connected, semi-connected, or fully disconnected mode. And you can deploy these models to the edge so you can actually make decisions on the fly without being connected. So this is a very powerful example and a way that 3M was able to use this predictive maintenance to help fix problems before they occur. All right, moving on from the edge to your on-premises networks or your on-premises data estates. And I'm sure many folks are familiar with SQL Server and how we continue to invest in this platform. But in SQL Server 2019, we enabled things like data virtualization with Polybase. We enabled new intelligent performance capabilities, memory optimized HIMTV, and much, much more. We also removed the chasm that exists today between operational stores and analytics platform. But to talk about a customer, I wanted to focus on Itaú Unibanco, which is one of the largest banks in Brazil and the 10th largest bank in the world operating in the finance and insurance industry. All right, so their concern was that their infrastructure would not be able to keep up with their growth, and this would affect their SLAs and in turn their business itself. A good example is when they had to perform a rollback operation. This would take a long time. On average, this would take 4 to 5 hours, and recovery could take as long as 40 hours. So they decided to be an early adopter of SQL Server 2019 to take full advantage of some of the new intelligent query processing and accelerated database recovery benefits in 2019. With accelerated database recovery, they were able to drop their rollback time from 4 to 5 hours to a matter of seconds. We've said things like rollbacks faster than you can react. Additionally, intelligent query processing was able to make most of their queries run about 90% faster. And the cool part about that is this was with 0 code changes. So really powerful stuff coming out of the SQL Server engineering team, especially with regards to performance. Moving right along in our journey from edge to cloud, we move into the hybrid space. And Azure Arc is really at the cutting edge of this technology innovation. What we've done here is we've brought the best of SQL, Kubernetes, and Azure to run fully managed cloud data services in customer data centers or other clouds on top of their choice of hardware and OS. For a customer example, I want to talk about KPMG Japan. In Tokyo, there's a team called Ignition, and they're working on building out a next-gen cloud-native application platform to serve their clients called Cloud Next. Now, while they want to harness all the latest cloud innovation, KPMG's clients often require running their applications and storing their data on-prem or in multiple public clouds to comply with government regulations or company policies. Now, Azure Arc is going to extend Azure's management capabilities and data platform services to any infrastructure, on-prem or any public cloud. This enabled KPMG to basically build applications once and run them anywhere and manage them centrally from Azure. The built-in automated management services like self-service, provision, elastic scalability, backup restore, and automatic updates of their Azure Arc enabled SQL managed instance allowed them to save a lot of time and also keep their customers running on the most secure, up-to-date database platform. All right, so we've kind of been through a whirlwind of things in just a few minutes, but we've talked about the edge, on-prem, hybrid. The next thing I want to talk about is moving to the cloud. Now, Azure SQL, which we'll talk about what that means, but Azure SQL is the largest platform as a service in Azure. Azure SQL is not just hosting SQL Server in the cloud, but we have built it from the ground up. And I want to talk about a few examples of that, specifically hyperscale. But let's talk a little bit about what Azure SQL actually entails. So Azure SQL is really a brand that represents our 3 main deployment options of running SQL in Azure. Now, the first option is known as Infrastructure as a Service, or IaaS. Now, you saw SQL Server 2019, and you're probably familiar with a lot of other SQL Server versions. Hopefully, you're running on the latest, but With SQL Server and Azure Virtual Machine, it's essentially just SQL Server. So you pick the version of SQL Server, you pick the OS you want to run on, you pick the version of the OS you want to run on. You have access to everything. The only difference is that we are now managing the infrastructure and hardware underneath that virtual machine. So this is going to give you the full flexibility and the full capabilities of SQL Server running in Azure. We see a lot of customers using this to migrate very quickly to the cloud. For example, Allscripts was able to migrate about 600 on-prem VMs in a matter of weeks and move to SQL Server and Azure Virtual Machine. We're also working hard to give you as many benefits that are platform as a service like as possible with SQL Server and Azure Virtual Machine. We recently added ways to make it easier to configure your virtual machine to be, and your SQL Server to be the best for the type of workload you specify. And we've added new capabilities around creating availability groups and failover cluster instances very easily in Azure. So that's IaaS. Now, let's say you never want to upgrade SQL Server again. Well, for that, we have our platform as a service offerings. While these offerings are going to do things like abstract away the OS for you, by doing that, we're able to provide you a versionless version of Azure SQL. And this first one is Azure SQL Managed Instance. And we're seeing a lot of customers move here as they migrate to the cloud and want to get more of those platform as a service benefits. With things like Azure SQL Managed Instance and other PaaS services, you also get an SLA, or a service level agreement, so a guaranteed amount of uptime from us, or you get credit back. Now, Azure SQL Managed Instance is great if you need the full instance scope capabilities. For example, if you need machine learning services, service broker, database mail, SQL Server agent, all these things that you're still using, that's fine. Azure SQL Managed Instance is going to support them. Now, let's say you don't need some of those instance scope features, or you're building a new application and you want to take advantage of the latest innovation in the cloud. Well, that's where Azure SQL Database comes into the play. This is an amazing service. This is the first service we came to the cloud with back in 2008 on what we called then Windows, Azure, and SQL services. But Azure SQL Database is just that. We're going to give you just a SQL database, and we're going to allow you to take advantage of some of the latest innovations that we're working on. One example of that is serverless. You've probably been hearing about serverless APIs and serverless applications, but we've developed a way to give you a serverless auto-scaling database. So you can essentially set the minimum and the maximum of what you want us to scale between, and we'll do that for you on a per second basis, only charging you for what you actually use when you actually need it. Now, when you're not using the database, if you want, you can set up an auto pause delay. And during the pause time, we're actually going to completely separate the compute from the storage and only bill you for the storage, which is going to result in huge cost savings. So this is a great example of how we're innovating, how we're thinking about re-architecting SQL Server to be cloud native. The other example I wanted to talk about is hyperscale. And instead of me just talking about it, I wanted to tell you about a customer we have called Hi-Rez. Now, Hi-Rez Studios is a leading video game developer. They have more than 70 million people playing worldwide, playing on PC, mobile, and console. Some of their popular games include Global Agenda, Smite, Paladins, and Realm Royale and Rogue Company. Rogue Company, something called Roco, is their latest release, and they use Azure SQL Database Hyperscale for it. Now, this is that latest thing I wanted to chat with you about. Reason they wanted to use hyperscale is when a gaming company launches a new game, they don't know how many people are going to play. They could start with 5 players and then within days get to like 5 million players. This is not out of the ordinary. Now, Hi-Rez was looking for a database that was going to give them the full T-SQL surface area with extreme low read-write latency and, most importantly, unlimited scale. They took a big bet on SQL Hyperscale, which is our flagship cloud re-architected relational database. So we took SQL Server apart and put it back together to be a cloud native solution that can scale vertically and horizontally to great limits, and hardware is no longer a limit. As a result, Hi-Rez was able to scale the same database from a few gigabytes to hundreds of terabytes in minutes. Now, if you're thinking about migrating to Azure, we have lots of tools to help you along that journey. Not going to spend a lot of time here, but I just wanted to highlight that we have custom guides at aka.ms/datamigration.com, or sorry, not .com, aka.ms/datamigration. And you can go there to essentially select a source and a target, for example, Oracle to Azure SQL Managed Instance, and we will give you step-by-step guides on how to do that. We are really trying to make this as easy as possible for you. Now, one customer I wanted to highlight here is a customer that took a phased approach to migrations. So H&R Block is a great example of this. Amidst some changes in the tax industry, H&R Block realized they needed to rethink how they use technology to serve their clients with a seamless experience. So they migrated to SQL Server 2017 running on virtual machines. Now, once they were up in Azure, they then were able to evaluate the platform as a service capabilities, and they made the move from virtual machine to Azure SQL Managed Instance. We're seeing more and more customers move into IaaS initially and then move to PaaS as they feel more comfortable and they're ready to get the full power of the cloud. All right, so the final thing I wanted to talk about, the final service I want to talk about before we get into the what's new and what's coming is Azure Synapse. Now, Azure Synapse is the first and only analytics system to have run all TPC-H queries at petabyte scale. This was made possible because Azure Synapse uses the same query processing engine that ships in all flavors of SQL. Of course, you'll have to go check out a Synapse session to get the deep dive on what exactly is going on here, but essentially we are evolving our analytics offering and bringing the next wave of innovation. We've taken our industry-leading data warehouse to a whole new level of performance and capabilities. You can see how we're bringing together enterprise data warehousing and big data analytics and integrating deeply with things like Power BI and Azure Machine Learning Services. Recently, we even announced a bridge between your data warehouse and your operational databases with Azure Synapse Link for Cosmos DB. So a lot of exciting stuff going on here, but really the main point, and it's illustrated with this customer called Grab Taxi, is that we're able to help customers reduce the time to insights. So we're helping you get intelligence over all of your data, and that's something that Grab Taxi was allowed to get, as well as added benefits because of the investments that we're always working on across the SQL platform related to security. All right, so we've talked about a lot of things. Before we wrap up, I wanted to give you a little look at the future. Now, there are 5 areas where we are investing as an overall team. The first is unifying SQL across cloud and on-prem. And over the next few years, we intend to totally blur the lines between cloud and on-prem. Azure Arc is kind of a great step that we're delivering on that promise and part of that vision, but we want to go much further. Today in Azure SQL, we run millions of customer databases, processing over 10 trillion databases transactions per day, but there's much more work that we want to do to meet the needs of modern developers. We're working on building out with modern frameworks. We recently announced some support for Django. We also want to enhance our JSON and graph capabilities and much, much more related to things like IoT, scaling, streaming, and more. Now, this is the most exciting one to me. We talked about hyperscale, which is giving you unlimited scale. We talked about serverless, that is kind of giving you that auto scaling, auto pause, delay, pay for what you need. And we didn't talk a ton about elastic pools, but this is a way of resource optimizing and cost sharing between mini databases. Now, we're working to bring the best of all these services into one single product offering. So that's something really exciting that we are working on. Fourth, we are always going to be investing in security. We've always been a leader here. Just to mention a few things, in July, we announced the general availability of Always Encrypted with Secure Enclaves. And in May, we announced the public preview for Azure SQL Ledger, where we're bringing the power of blockchain into your existing databases without all the complexity and with no extra cost. These are just a few examples of how we're investing in security, and you'll see more as we build integrations with Azure Purview, our latest data governance solution. Finally, I want to say that SQL Server is very dear to us. We're never going to slow down when it comes to innovating this SQL Server engine. I wanted to share one example of how we are leading innovation, and it's a project where we are rewriting parts of the SQL engine to remove the static variables in SQL code with machine learning models that can help adapt to your workloads at runtime. This is going to be transformational. There's no data platform that offers this level of intelligence. And this is just one example of how we're truly, truly innovating here. Now, I have a brief video I wanted to share. Maybe some of you all have seen it, and then I will give a few closing remarks. So hopefully the sound works. Let's try it.
Imagine a tiny particle drifting at the edge of the Milky Way. A single element that could solve the next big challenge. Imagine you had the power to reach across the stars and grab it. Our world is immersed in a galaxy of data. Data that connects us, cures us, enables us to do more. Data that helps us innovate wherever imagination takes us. In 1969, Apollo 11's guidance computer was limited to 72 kilobytes as it traveled to the moon. Now, we have exponentially more power in the palm of our hands. This precious resource demands a trusted partner to harness and make every bit of it intuitively accessible at the speed of our ideas. The speed of SQL Server and Azure SQL, the latest evolution of data management's highly secure, supercharged platform, enabling you to break performance barriers and boost agility. Azure SQL Database's hyperscale capabilities allow you to auto-scale dynamically. Advanced data security keeps hazards at bay with a single click, while built-in cloud intelligence eliminates worry. Machine learning services enhance the value of your data by importing adjacent code to create models faster than ever. And with cross-platform solutions like Azure Arc, SQL Server and Azure SQL products can be leveraged virtually everywhere. Our team is motivated to consistently improve this new breed of database without disrupting the application of our existing technology, as many of the world's critical systems and most influential corporations deploy it, and agencies on our most important front lines depend on it. Businesses like Bolzano that leverage SQL Server big data clusters to help radiologists interpret medical images, or Zeiss that use Azure SQL Edge to constantly improve the manufacturing of optical lenses, and organizations that help us dream bigger, like the Sloan Digital Sky Survey that built its ever-expanding database of 200 million galaxies and 260 million stars on SQL Server. Imagine what your data could dream up. Imagine unparalleled access to that next great innovation. Together, we can reach it at the speed of SQL Server and Azure SQL.
Yeah, I really like that video, and I think it kind of illustrates how SQL started as a relational engine, and over the years we have transformed it into a full-blown data platform. As you can see, many of these innovations are not restricted to SQL Server. We are taking them beyond SQL Server, and we are really looking to you to help us build the next version of all of these great things. With that being said, I wanted to say that even with the best technical innovation, none of our products can be successful without a strong community. Our philosophy has always been very community-centric, and so I want to spend a moment to say thank you to everyone joining, to everyone watching, to everyone contributing, giving feedback, and please keep it coming. We always love hearing from you, and we're always looking for new ways to support you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. That was absolutely amazing. You setting up the vision of Azure SQL, not Azure SQL, SQL in general, talking about how you all started back in 1980s to what lies next. Definitely tells that you guys and girls are definitely not going to stop working on SQL engine. Thank you so much, Anna. We couldn't take the Q&A after the keynotes because that's not how it works, because I see many comments coming in. People are really excited for the SQL. And yeah, any final thing you want to plug in before we move to the next session?
Thank you so much, Simon, for everything that you're doing. You know, this is a great example of how important the community is for the success of Azure overall. So thank you so much for everything you do, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the conference.
I want to thank you, Anna, for accepting the invitation. I'm always, as I said many times, I'm always very excited to have you. So is this community. I would love to have you back, and I know where to reach you out. Have a great day ahead, and thank you so much, and see you soon. Ta-ra. Bye. All right, with that keynote, we now move to our next session. That's will be by Mustafa Toroman. Mustafa is going to talk about Azure DevOps Love Started. Mustafa is a Microsoft MVP. He's also a C# MVP and a solution architect. So without any further ado, let's invite Mustafa to Cloud Summit 2021. Hi, Mustafa. Welcome to Cloud Summit 2021.
Hello. Great to be here.
I'm really excited, Mustafa. To be honest, DevOps is something that people are really looking forward to learn in this session as we are looking at the registrations forms. So at this moment, many people are watching us, and I'm really looking forward for your session. Please feel free to go ahead and share screen, and then you can go ahead and get started.
Perfect. Sure.
And everyone who is watching, I see many people are joining from LinkedIn. Please feel free to go ahead and ask your question in the comments. And after the session ends, we would love to take your questions, and Mustafa will be there to answer it. Mustafa, I've added your screen to the stream. Everybody can see it. And next 25 minutes is all yours.
Thank you. All right, let's kick this off. So next session is going to be Azure DevOps Loves.net. And that was a really nice introduction before me, but I need to speak with Simon about some photos and where he actually found them for that. However, just a few words. I work as a solution architect. I'm part of the CloudIon, which is recently acquired by DevOps team. Here is also my Twitter handle. If I can help you in any way, please feel free to reach out. So 25 minutes is not a lot of time, so let's kick this off. Why are we here? So .NET is a very popular platform. It's something, an amazing framework that helps us develop software for quite a few years now. I was amazed by the information that more than 38 million websites in the world are running on ASP.NET. Popularity of this started growing even more when .NET Core was introduced with a lot of open source components and stuff. So it was a very natural way for us to move our ASP.NET applications, no matter if it's classic or core, to Azure, because basically Azure loves .NET. They come from the same company, Microsoft created them with a lot of love, and these are things that are going well together. ASP.NET and Azure are a natural mix. But how do we actually get from our development environment to Azure? How do we put our code out there, and how do we make it available to our customers? Well, the answer is very simple. We're going to do it with Azure DevOps. Another tool from Microsoft family that is really tightly put together with all the other things in the ecosystem, so it makes a natural thing. It makes a natural environment for everything in that ecosystem. Let's basically look at the demo, and we're going to basically spend the rest of our session in here. So what I'm going to do in Azure DevOps, I have a DevOps organization, so I'm going to create a new project. So let's call it Cloud Summit, and this should be done relatively quickly. And of course, when you're doing a demo, it's taking a bit longer. Okay, here we are. So new organization, new project was created inside my organization. And if I go to the repos, I can see that it's empty. I will right now initialize my main branch just by adding a README file. This is a default placeholder just for me to know that this repo exists, and when I actually connect to it, that I know that something is in there. So as a next step, let's go with starting up a Visual Studio, and I'm going to clone a repository. I'm going to connect to my Azure DevOps. Once the list shows, I'm going to select the organization. Come on. Okay, here we are. I'm going to select the organization. I'm going to select the repository I just created, and I'm going to connect to it. So here we are. Next thing I want to do will be clone the repository. So I will create the clone of my repository. And if I go to solution, I can see the README file that was generated when I initialized the repository itself. So we know we are connected there. Now, this doesn't mean much. Let's add some code to it. So I will simply add a new project. I will select ASP.NET Core Web App. We will select that one. Let's call the project name Cloud Summit. We want to place it in the same repository, and so it's in the folder. So we are creating Cloud Summit. Let's kick it off. We will select .NET Core 3.1. Project is created. And here we are. We have a bit of code right now. This is nothing major. This is just an empty ASP.NET Core project, but it will be enough of a code to showcase what we are trying to demo here. So this.
Mustafa, can you zoom in a little bit?
Okay, let's see. Is it better now?
Better.
Okay, perfect. So next thing that we're going to do is we're going to commit this to our repo. So let's go to the Git changes. I will exclude the files that were generated by my Visual Studio. So these folders that you'd see with .vs, those are generated locally, and you probably don't want them in your repository, but the rest of the files I want to commit. So I will create initial commit to create a stage commit. And then I will commit it. I will commit it to my repository and push the changes. Initiating push and successfully pushed. So let's go back to my repository. So if I refresh right here, here we are. My code showed up. Everything is in here. So code is there. I'm ready to collaborate with my teammates. Everyone in the team can work on this right now. So let's move on and start creating additional components for this. So we want a fully functional CI/CD for this in order to, once the code is in there, we want to build it and then push it to Azure. So let's start by creating a pipeline. And we can create two versions of pipeline. We can do either YAML files or we can use a classic editor. Right now, I'm going to use a classic editor as a first instance, and then we'll move to the second one a bit later. So I'll use a classic editor. It offers me to select where my code is. So naturally, it recognizes that it's in Azure repos, and it recognizes where my code is. But I have other options like Git, GitHub Enterprise Server, Subversion, and so on. I will select the one, and then I have an option to select between the templates. I will select ASP.NET Core as my template, and it will basically generate everything required for me. I will do two additional changes on this one. First one is because in this state, it will not run. Why? Because by default, it's using a older version of Windows agent that doesn't support .NET Core 3.1. Like .NET Core 2.1 and all the versions could run on this, but this one wouldn't. So I'm going to change that to Windows Server 2022. So basically, to ensure that I'm running the latest version that is supported. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disable test assemblies, because I don't have that right now in my repo. Of course, you definitely want to have tests. You want during your build to run tests, but I don't have any in the repo right now. So I will just keep them to not to waste time. And I can do save and queue, and this will trigger my first build. This will create the build on my build agent, and will execute all the steps that were defined in the build. So what it's going to do is basically, once the agent starts, and it should be any time now, hopefully. Yeah, here we are. It will initialize job. It will collect the code from my repository, then do set the proper version of NuGet restore. It will create the build, and then basically publish symbol path and publish artifact. This last step is very important in our process, because after successful build, we want a package that we can actually deploy to our servers. While we're waiting for this to end, we are gonna quickly create a web app where we actually want to deploy this. So I'm gonna do a template deployment, and I have kind of prepared templates, so I'm gonna just use them. So I have a template file and parameter file, which are basically, ARM templates are basically a JSON file that contains information about my infrastructure. Everything's in place. I'm just going to change it to West Europe, so it's closer to me and it responds faster to me. We'll do create, and it should be on its way. Perfect. Okay. Where are we with the build? Okay, build completed. We did publish symbol path. We are publishing an artifact and cleanup, and we're done. So as a result, we have an artifact. That's very important part, because right now, if I go to artifact, I can see that I have a web app zip that basically contains the files that I want to deploy. So this is the part that's really important for us. As a next step, we are going to set up a release. So we did a continuous integration. We built the code. We created the package for deployment, but we need additional step to actually put it somewhere to actually be available to people. So let's do a new pipeline. And again, here we're going to be offered a bunch of templates, and I'm going to do Azure App Service deployment. So we're good there. I'm going to select an artifact. Artifact is basically, you need to select a build in your project. So I have a single one, cannot be a mistake there. And I have several diff options when which version I want to run. Obviously, I want to do latest, because I want my code to be deployed every time I change it. So we're good there. As a next step, I need to set up my Azure subscription. So let's connect to my Azure subscription. I'm going to select this one, and I need to authorize it. So I'm going to use my Azure account. I'm going to log in. And obviously, I need to approve MFA notification. So I approved MFA check. We're good to go. And this is now creating a service to my Azure subscription, so I can actually connect from my Azure DevOps organization and deploy the code. In the meantime, while we're waiting for this one to finish, let's see what's going on here. So this one was finished, and if I go to resource groups, there is a Cloud Summit resource group where I have a simple app service running. So let's check it out. If I go to this web app, this is basically an empty website. It's just single HTML to tell you that your web app is up and running and you can actually access it. It's waiting for your code, so everything is ready. Okay, subscription was authorized. As a next step, I need to select app service. I'm going to use that one that I created previously, and I'm going to say save. And once I say save, I'm going to say also create a release. And here we are, release started. Hopefully we'll not wait much for it, and it will start immediately. And while this is happening, let's move on back to the web app and see a couple of things. So we mentioned previously that cloud offers a lot of different things, and it's a perfect platform. But when it comes to app service, and that is probably one of my favorite services in Azure, there are some amazing things. One of the favorite things is definitely scaling out. So what scaling out does is basically creating a rules that allow you to create additional instances of your application to handle increased workloads. This actually allows you to save on cost, because you can run a minimum instance of the application when you don't have traffic, and as number of users increase, it can grow. So if I create scale rules, I can say that based on the metric, I can add a rule that says, for example, if my CPU percentage is over 70%, automatically increase the count of instances to 1. And if I add a rule, it will automatically create additional instance for my application. However, you have to be careful with this one, because if you scale infinitely, you have to scale down eventually, and that will never happen if you don't have scale out rules. So it's also remember that once the CPU drops, you should decommission some of the instances. Okay, this was done. Probably, let's see, yeah, application was deployed. So what the release process does, it just gets the artifact that we created during the build and then deploys it to Azure App Service. So let's check it out. If I refresh here, I should get my app. And here we are. It's really simple. Cloud Summit, welcome. Nothing special in there, but here it is. It's deployed. Now, this allows me to trigger manually the build and push it to Azure whenever I want. But what if I want every change that is created to actually be put in Azure? Well, I can definitely automate that. There are two things I need to do here. First one would be to go to my build, to my CI pipeline, and under the triggers, I want to enable continuous integration. And right now, I'm just going to save it. I'm going to do a similar thing with the release, and I'm going to edit the release and say that I want similar thing. I want to enable trigger. So whenever new artifact is available, it should start the process automatically. Let's quickly go back to our Visual Studio, and I'm going to open Pages and just edit index and change welcome to Cloud Summit. We're going to save that one, and we're going to commit the change. So home page change, I'm going to commit that one. I'm going to push it and successfully pushed. So if I go back to my repository and check out what happened, is basically in the pages and check out the index, we can change that the change was made. I can see the change I just did in my Visual Studio. It was pushed successfully. Now, automatically, once I push this, this should create a new build. So yeah, as we can see, the build is running. We can see that there is build in process. So already did a couple of things. It already got the code, did NuGet, set the NuGet version, doing a NuGet restore, building a solution, which should be completed relatively fast. Okay, everything done, pushing the artifact, and it's completed. we can see that there is a new artifact created. Right now, we have a new web app zip, and this should automatically start the new release process as well. So let's check it out. Yeah, here it is. Release was just created. So new release is on the way. It was already queued, and it's actually already running. So we have a new build process automatically triggered, and access after successful build, we have automatic release. So the artifact was downloaded, it's deployed to Azure App Service right now. It should copy the files. If I remember correctly, it's going to be 59 files uploaded, and it should be done relatively quickly, in time for us to do a couple of more things. And it's always slower when you're waiting for it. Okay, here we are. So let's check it out. Let's see if it's already pushed. Here we are. Changes there. Welcome to Cloud Summit is available. Okay, so what we mentioned at the beginning, we can do two types of pipelines. We can do a classic one that we showed, and we can do a YAML. We probably want to do YAML because we want to use pipelines as a code as well. We want our pipelines to be treated the same way as the code, because there are multiple benefits. First, change tracking. It's easier to handle. You can revert to your version of the pipeline at the point where you want to run your code and so on. So it's much easier. What I'm going to do is disable this trigger, because I don't want this one to be triggered automatically anymore. And I'm going to do another pipeline. So I'm going to do a new pipeline, but this time I'm going to do a YAML one. So I'm going to do Azure repos. I'm going to do Cloud Summit as a repository, and it automatically recognizes what kind of code I have. So it's recognized it's some kind of ASP.NET. I'm going to select the core one, and it's going to generate some kind of pipeline for me. It already creates steps for me as it is. If I go to save and run, it will commit the code. So what it has here is it will either commit it directly to the main branch or create a new branch. I don't have a time for creating branches and running pull requests, so I'll just commit directly to the main branch, and it's creating a pipeline. And if I go to my repos now, you can see a new file. There are Azure pipelines here right now. We have Azure pipelines that is basically describing how my pipeline looks, and any kind of change and everything that's happening, we can track in the same way as we are tracking the code. And if we want to return to an instance of a code at some point, we can easily revert to same version of the pipeline, or the pipeline that we were using at the time when that code was actually in use as well. Okay, so let's see what's going on. This pipeline is running. So it did a couple of steps and stuff. So NuGet installer command is going to do build. I should probably remove the test because I don't have them. But you may notice that there are a couple of steps missing here as well. We are missing publish part. We will not get an artifact here. It will not automatically generate it for us. So we will need to adjust this pipeline a bit and add them. We can do that in two different ways. So I will go to my pipeline. So this one is done. So I will go to the same pipeline and I say edit.
Mustafa, maybe you can wrap up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just so I will remove this task, and I can either use assistance. So if I go to the publish, it will give me an assistance that I can fill in. Or the other option is, if I go to my classic pipeline, I can simply, selected the wrong one when you're in the hurry. If I go to my classic pipeline, I can get the information. If I go to the task that I'm missing, I can select YAML and get the code that I'm missing here. So I will just paste it here and do the same thing for the publish. Why am I showing this? A lot of people, when starting out with YAML pipelines, are not quite comfortable with writing that manually. So this is kind of a way to actually help you out. And we simply push save. Our new pipeline is updated, and as a result of this pipeline, we're going to get the same artifact that we have previously. What we need to do is adjust our release, select the new build pipeline to get the artifact, and we're good to go to release again. Okay, as I said, not a lot of time. Thank you for your attention, and I really hope you enjoyed this session. If there are any questions, feel free to reach. I will try to answer anything.
All right, Mustafa, that was an absolutely amazing session. I would say a roller coaster session.
Yeah, it was like trying to get as much as possible in 25 minutes.
I'm so sorry about it. Right? These time constraints are always very challenging. Let's take a couple of questions. I know our next speaker is very kind, so she won't mind if we start a couple of minutes late. Keshav is asking, so we need to trigger in CI pipeline to automatically trigger the changes done to be reflected in Azure manually.
Okay, so if you want code to go automatically, we need to set up a trigger. So every time we do a certain action, it will trigger like trigger it and do everything, the chain of the actions that we define. Yeah, that's
all right. Good. Final question by Komachi is saying, can we say artifact basically contain the actual core code which contains the functionality?
Yeah, that's basically it. That we're verifying the build and then collecting the files that we need to actually deploy. That's completely true.
Right, people say great session, very informative. People are enjoying your session. Excellent. So that was great, Mustafa. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. You and your team is growing. We see that. We had an absolutely amazing keynote by Magnus, the opening keynote, and your session was absolutely great. Thank you so much. Any final thing you want to plug in before we move to the next session?
Yeah, thank you for your time. It was a pleasure to have a chance to join you here.
Thank you, Mustafa. Have a nice day. And see you soon. Ta-ra. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Right, with that, we move to our next session. But before we move to the next session, I gotta play a video because we made a video and the next speaker didn't see it, which is so sad. I will play a minute video and then we'll be back fast.
Hi, I'm Anna Hoffman.
Hey friends, I'm Nikolai.
Hi, I'm Mustafa Toroman.
Hi, I'm Tanya Janca.
Hello.
And I'm excited to be the speaker at Azure Summit 2021.
It's a fantastic event that will be 11 days live streaming,
where more than 100 speakers from all over the world.
I'm excited to speak at Azure Summit about Power BI and Synapse Analytics.
And I'm going to talk about security.
And also a Microsoft MVP for Azure.
I'm speaking at Cloud Summit about automated release of .NET application.
And the best part is that this is a free event.
Come join me live at Learn TV on September 17th.
Come join me live on Learn TV on September 14th.
Come join me on Learn TV on the 14th of September this year.
A bunch of other Microsoft and community speakers.
So if you want to learn how to secure Azure, come to my talk.
Join us, it will be a lot of fun.
See you there.
See you there.
See you there.
See you there.
All right, we now move to our next session. That's why Tanya is going to talk about cloud native security. I'm really excited to host her because I'm hosting her for the very first time. She's a community rock star, and I follow her on LinkedIn, Twitter, everywhere. So let's welcome Tanya to Cloud Summit 2021. Hi, Tanya. Welcome to Cloud Summit 2021.
Thank you so much for having me. Oh my gosh, what a wonderful intro video. I don't think I've ever had such a great intro before. Thank you, Simon.
Yeah. I really appreciate, Tanya, for you accepting the invitation. I know you're not well, right? So thank you so much for that.
Okay.
I'm not going to take much of your time. 25 minutes is all yours. I'm going to share your screen. We're going to do chit chat towards the end of the session. Everybody can see it. And next 25 minutes is all yours.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we only have 25 minutes, and I'm going to go through what cloud native security is. So although this talk usually has a whole bunch of demos of Azure, we at 25 minutes, I mean, I did see I saw most of Mustafa's talk, and I have to say, I think he pulled 400 rabbits out of a hat doing that so fast in Azure. I was super impressed with him. Wow. So cloud native security. So I like to tell you what I'm going to tell you. Then I tell you what I told you. And then I tell you the thing. And so the idea is that you get it. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about cloud. We're going to talk about what cloud native means. And then we're going to talk about how we secure cloud native and basically how we can do security in more innovative and exciting ways that we couldn't do it before clouds like Azure existed. And so I want to warn you a bit because I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, and I'm hoping that you're going to put some things into the chat to answer, to share. And I can't really interact with you as much as I'd like to, as much as I could in person, because then I can stare at you, and then I could also bribe you with maple candies to get answers out of you. But I'd really love it if you could share your answers in the chat as we go through this. So I'm going to tell you a bunch of the answers because, well, I mean, like when I teach this live, especially if it's at a meetup, I'm like, I've got all night, folks. I'll just sit here until you start sharing. But I don't have all night this time. So let's go. So this is me. I feel like Simon's video did like a way better job of explaining that I am a big nerd on the internet. And we do these slides as speakers. We do these slides so that you think that we are qualified to give our own talk. But I'm going to just assume you're like, I'm on Learn TV. I'm going to learn stuff. Let's go with Tanya. So let's learn some things. So what is cloud? Right. And so I have, so let's do the first, like the really dry, very formal definition of cloud. So this is the Wikipedia definition. So cloud computing is so let's go through this. I'm going to read it and then let's dissect it. So cloud computing is the on-demand availability of computer systems, resources, especially data storage and computing power without the direct active management of the user. So let's tear this apart, kind of suss it out. Because when someone reads me something like this, I'm like, bleh, that's too many abstract, very complex concepts. Let's dissect it a bit. So it's on demand. So this is so magical. I used to have to, when I was a dev, I would make a ticket and it would go to the operations team and then they would think about it. And then I'd usually have to get approval to get a server and this and that. And sometimes I'd have to go over and be like, hey, buddy, like, could you make my server like sometime this week, please? I really need this stuff. And I'm not proud of it, but I would bribe them with cookies, like a lot. There used to be this DBA, and if I wanted data things happening and I wasn't supposed to access the database myself, even though, programmers can usually get around that, I was like, Colin, I have Oreos. I will give you 4 if you will do this. And I have bribed so many people with cookies over my career, and a lot of homemade ones, but Oreos worked particularly well on Colin, the DBA. But the point is that you could just ask. I kid you not, like with Azure, all the clouds, you just put in the thing, you say, I'm going to pay, and then they just build you infrastructure. They give you IoT. They give you like whatever it is that you've asked for. And it takes like a couple minutes. It's even like short enough time that like I can't necessarily go get a coffee and come back. It's like too fast. And that's amazing. And so the other part that's really exciting is without direct active management by the user. And so I used to have to care for my servers, just like you would care for a pet. I mean, like you wouldn't give your servers food. That's not going to go well. And if you pet them, they don't usually make more noise. But definitely you'd have to care for them on a regular basis. You have to patch them. You have to make sure your configurations are okay. You have to just like maintain this thing and make sure it's okay. And on top of that, I'm like patching my app and fixing bugs and making little changes that my clients would ask for. And so you don't have to manage your infrastructure anymore most of the time because they just do this for you. They just create infrastructure for you. They will care for a lot of it. It's pretty exciting. And so what do we mean by all of this? Like, we mean that you have this shared responsibility, which we're going to talk about a bit later, but it means that basically Microsoft or whoever your provider is doing a bunch of the heavy lifting for you. And it's pretty exciting to be able to just like count on other people to help you be awesome. And so that's basically what we mean by cloud, is that they will provide all these things to you reliably, and they will share some of the responsibility with you for maintaining and securing it. So we haven't even got to security yet, but don't worry, we're on our way. So what is cloud native security? So my definition is that it's stuff that's specifically made to run in the cloud, specifically made for that. And like, okay, so let's give you a more advanced one. So this is one that I put together. So I used to work at Microsoft. I actually used to work with Frank and like a bunch of the other people that are part of the summit. And so it's kind of nice to see familiar faces. So I put this together from so many different amazing, incredibly brilliant human beings that I had the opportunity to work with, especially on the Microsoft Ignite tour. So then I actually got to spend like quality time with a lot of people. And so I came up with this definition from all these brilliant human beings. So it's applications and services that automate and integrate the concepts of continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment, DevOps, microservices and microservices architecture. So that means APIs, serverless, and containers. And basically, like, this is stuff you could not do on-prem. And you can do things like Azure Stack, so you kind of like bring Azure home with you, and that's great. But still, you're doing cloud. Do you know what I mean? You're doing cloud. You're doing the new stuff. And so the idea of cloud native is not taking all your old legacy things and lifting and shifting it into the cloud. That's cool. That is good. You have way better reliability and resilience from then on. Right? But that's not cloud native. You're not taking advantage of all the awesome stuff. And that's okay. That's okay if you're doing that. But what I'm going to talk about in this talk is specifically cloud native and like the new ways that you can do things. And I do not mean to say that people supporting legacy apps are not fighting the good fight, because if anything, you have to fight a lot harder because you don't get to do all the fancy new tricks. And you're taking care of like an elderly application that's like 16 years old. You are still fighting the good fight. But I want to talk about the fun new stuff. Okay, so what is the difference between cloud and a traditional data center? So we're just going to talk about general differences, and then we're going to go into security differences. And then I'm going to make fun of myself probably a bit, and then I'm going to make fun of cloud providers a bit, because teasing and making fun of things is sort of one of my hobbies. And then we are going to wrap up. But when you think of a traditional data center, what do you think of? So this is where I would like you to be interactive. I would like you to share some of your thoughts about what you think of when you think of a traditional data center. In the chat, seriously. Simon does not need to read them out to me. I'm going to read them all later, though. You better believe it. And so my first thought is me as a junior penetration tester, having to go physically into data centers and being so cold. I remember my boss sent me once, and it was July. It was really hot where I live. So I was wearing this pretty dress, and I go into a data center, and I was only supposed to be there half an hour, and then it turned into I was there 6 hours in a dress, not wearing gloves, not wearing a hat, not even having a sweater, freezing. And so that I think of loud, cold data centers. And so some of the other things that happened with a traditional data center were there was some manual patching. There was some manual management of patching. It was a lot of you can use System Center and other things to deploy patches, but if things are missing, it didn't always tell you, imperfect. It's on premises, which means it's your responsibility. I worked somewhere once and we had a flood, and part of our data center was in our building, and our data center had a flood. Yeah, that sucked. I was one of those people that had my giant desktop on my desk because I hated crawling around underneath my desk, mostly because all my male colleagues would look at my butt. And I was just like, this is not cool. So I just one day redid it. And so my computer was okay, but a lot of people's computers were not okay because they were on the floor underneath their desk. And so when your data center is on premises, it is your responsibility, physical responsibility. I also think of bare metal. So rather than now, I don't have a specific computer, but I used to have computers and they all had names. There was Scully, Mulder, and Pamela. and Bessie. Bessie was one of my favorites. And I'd have physical machines, bare metal, that I would run things on. I had to run my own network. So I only ran my own network a handful of times. Most of the times I was lucky and I could be on an internet and someone else ran it. But running your own network is work. That's effort. Everything yourself, manual, stringing cables. Oh my gosh, those pictures when people put pictures on the internet of inside a data center and there's a million cables and there's this awful mess, makes my heart break a little bit, makes me stressed, cortisol comes out of me. You run your own air conditioning, your own power, your own backups, your own everything. And so a thing that a lot of people don't know about power is not created in this perfect amount of 120 or 220 volts. No. Power comes in surges, and it's not this perfect thing. And so you have to regulate power if you're going to go to this big, huge data center. And this is stuff you have to worry about a lot. You have to worry about failover. Oh, I've had so many things where a data center just goes down and there's no failover. And I thought we paid for that. You need an operations team and they have to be on call, and that is expensive. And you have to train them. You have to not only recruit them, but then you have to retain that staff, which means you have to be nice to them and give them training and hopefully give them career opportunities so they want to keep working for you. You need to have an off-site business continuity plan, disaster recovery, or you should have one. I've definitely worked at places where our disaster recovery site was at the same place. And I was then what you're saying is there will be no recovery if we have disaster. You'll see over provisioning. This is a huge thing where you buy a lot extra just in case. And that as a person that owns a business, a startup, oh my gosh, there are so many things that we have accidentally bought too much of because we weren't sure or you didn't get enough and then things crash. And so for the cloud, this is a thing you don't have to worry about necessarily anymore. And apps are deployed to a specific server. So I'm calling this photo op number 1. If you want to take a screenshot of this list, now's sort of your time. I don't personally love taking notes while I'm watching a talk. I love just watching and trying to listen and consume as much information as I can. So I took notes for you. but apps were deployed to specific servers. Like Bessie had this app, Pamela had this other app. And I remember this one guy, he's like, blah, 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 Pam. I'm like, please address her by her full name. Anyway, so what do you think of in cloud? So I would like you to put this into the chat, what you think of when you think of cloud. Because I had like, pretty wonderful introduction to cloud because like, I saw a little AWS, I saw a little this, a little of that, but then I got to work at Microsoft and I got to have as much Azure as I wanted. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I have licenses to all the awesome stuff. And so my first foray into cloud was seeing the Security Center dashboard and how I could see, for the first time, I could see everything clearly. And I don't know how to explain, but that visibility and the fact that I could drill down to a specific box and fix it, I was just like, it is pretty magical. So that's what I think of when I first think of cloud. And I'd love to hear what you think of when you think of cloud in the chat. So off premises, not your responsibility. So it is not unless you are a person that works at Microsoft and you happen to work in an Azure data center, it's going to be off premises for you, right? Like all the cloud customers, it's off premises, and that's nice. It sounds weird, but like giving up that responsibility and knowing that it's safely in someone else's hand is awesome. It means auto scaling. So no needing to buy things in advance. I know this is going to sound so silly, but like I wrote a book and people buy my book and people ask for signed books. So I have to ship books all the time. I have boxes and boxes and boxes of books in my house and a zillion of those like little bubble wrap envelope things. And then someone ordered the wrong size. So then I have like 50 of that one. And so I have like so much stuff and I have to over provision. I have to buy too many and slowly like let them all go one at a time, or 10 or 20 or 50 at a time, like people buy my book. And so auto scaling of technology, yes, because I used to have to do this with all of my servers too. Usually the cloud is internet available. In my entire career in tech since 1997, once the internet went down, but the intranet was still up, so we could still work. Every other time our intranet was also down, so your internal network. And then, once they realized like it's down, it's not coming back in a couple minutes. So they've sent us all to Starbucks or Timmy's. We've all recaffeinated and come back. It's still not up. They're like, just go home, have the rest of the day off. We don't want all of you software developers running around causing trouble. You can do infrastructure as a service. So I was on Azure Fun Bites yesterday with my friend Jay, and basically like the night before, I just did a whole bunch of infrastructure as code and built out a bunch of insecure demos. Then I attacked them because I'm a jerk like that. And then I could like demo to him, like, look, here we found this, so we did that. And I just asked for some infrastructure as a service, and then Azure just made it for me. And that's awesome. Apps can be on a whole bunch of different servers. Maintenance is not your problem. Like I said, centralized, beautiful, like everything you can see. And this one's really important, geographically distributed. I have worked at places where so I live in Canada and, we're physically, geographically bigger than the United States, but compared to the United States, our country's empty. We have for every 10, 12 Americans, there's one of us. And so we we don't geographically distribute a lot of things. We are all like, where's the warmest part of Canada? I want to move there. And so, geographically distributed data centers that the cloud allows is magical because we're mostly in just a couple of cities. And I don't mean to talk badly of us. It's just that that's where we do a lot of our technology stuff. We all gather in one place and generate the heat so we can stay warm. And that's a thing. Cloud data centers are lights out, which means they're run by robots. And I have to say, I think robots are very cool. But also it means that humans don't need to go in and things are just automated. And that's kind of amazing. And so here is like a little graph that I took off the internet from Quora.com. And if you wanted to take a screenshot of this, you totally could. But it only says some of the things we talked about. And really what I want to talk about is security, right? That's what I really want to talk about. And so what do you think of when you think of traditional data center security? Because I immediately think of security guards wandering around. I think of them having like a giant belt with, put your thoughts in the chat. I think of them having a radio so that they can call if they see someone that should not be there. And I have to say, like, being a pen tester, I've gotten into a lot of places where maybe I shouldn't have gotten in. And being, you know, a pretty lady really helps. Like, hi, I'm supposed to be in this data center. Yeah, I'm supposed to get something from Ken. But what else do you think of? Because I think of zoning. So we used to have implied trust in data centers. So we would have, you know, the data zone, and we would have all of the databases in there, and then we'd have a firewall around it. And then we would have, you know, public access zone. So things where it connects to the internet. We would have a demilitarized zone for our very serious stuff. We would just have like a bunch of firewalls, and everything inside each firewall would trust each other, and everything else you'd have to open up a hole. One of my old bosses used to refer to our firewall as the Swiss cheese. And I tried to explain to him that that was embarrassing. He should stop saying that. But then I went to Switzerland, and they explained that what we in Canada call Swiss cheese is like one type of cheese. And they're like, that's not the best cheese at all. We have hundreds of cheeses that are better. And then they gave me a bunch of cheese when I visited. And I have to say that's probably the best speaker gift ever, because I really like cheese. Manual patching, manual patch management, manually having to scan a bunch of areas to see which patches are missing, which configurations are wrong, what's questionable. Physical security, like I said, physical security guards. Generally using third-party software. So I have made a lot of money in my career from using Nessus and Nexpose, just like scanning infrastructure. They're like, do you want to, you know, we'd like to hire you for a pen test on our infrastructure. I'm like, no, you don't. You just want me to do a VA scan. I'll charge you way less. And I will tell you the things you need to fix, and then you fix them. Life will be good. You don't want, first of all, you shouldn't hire me to do a physical, I'm a web app pen tester, or I was, not an you don't want that. I'm not. You maintain not only a trained operations team, but a security operations team as well. Money, extra money. You have many third-party monitoring and security tools. So this is your third one. This is your third one. And then cloud native. Applications and services that automate and integrate the concepts of DevOps, CI/CD, microservice architecture, APIs, serverless containers. It is not copying everything, your legacy applications, lifting and shifting them into the cloud. That's okay if you want to do it. Like, it is totally okay if you want to do that. Absolutely. But you're not doing cloud native. You're using the cloud to host your legacy apps. There is no shame in this. It is totally okay. But I want to talk about cloud native. So what do you think of when you think of cloud native? We've got 3 minutes left, so I'm going to whiz through this. Zero trust. Just-in-time access control, closing all your ports all the time except when you need them. Automation for patching and patch management. Yes, automated VA scanning all the time. You don't have to set up agents. It just does it for you. Complete visibility. Threat monitoring. Monitoring of everything, and then adding automated responses. Using CI/CD pipelines like Azure DevOps, or, oh, yeah, I was going to say GitHub Actions, but I guess because one company owns the other company, I kind of associate them. Having amazing resiliency so that your A and the CIA availability is always standing strong. Doing security as code. So like, once you have people doing infrastructure as code and you have people releasing in pipelines, oh yeah, I'm going to do security as code for sure. There's just so many amazing things. There's more. There's DevSecOps. So I can add security tooling to your pipeline. I can automate a whole bunch of security checks. I can use serverless and logic apps to protect ourselves. So detecting something bad happened and then responding automatically. They call them playbooks in Azure. You can use the cloud native tools that come from your provider, like their SIM, Sentinel, like native threat detection. Having native firewalls means like you just press a couple buttons and it's implemented and it actually just works. It means less heroics, which means happier staff, and happier staff means less turnover. And that's the most important thing. And so I want to tell you one last important thing, and that is that this responsibility of securing your systems is still shared between you and whoever your provider is, whether it's Microsoft or someone else. It is a shared responsibility. And so you see like your vendor on one side, so physical assets, data center operations, cloud infrastructure. But then on the other side, what you need to secure is if you have virtual machines and networks, you need to make good choices. If you have apps and workloads, again, you need to write secure code. And like, I know that I'm the person that teaches secure coding. And so that's why it's like, oh, well, you know, she blah, blah, blah. But you can learn this in many places. There are books, there are articles, there are so many ways to learn. And so I'm going to give you a couple of resources. So Microsoft Learn, there are a whole bunch of different awesome things. I know I'm right at the cusp. So take a screenshot of this, some awesome books about DevOps and cloud native and about security. If you are a woman or a person who identifies as a woman or non-binary, I have this international nonprofit where we want basically women and non-binary folks to get to meet each other and be friends. I have an online free community at community.wehackpurple.com. It's all free. You can just join, meet people. There's articles, videos, conversations, events. Every Monday on Twitter, I do Cyber Mentoring Monday. And basically, I use this hashtag to help connect people with professional mentors. And the last resource is me. She Hacks Purple on every single platform like Twitter, Instagram, all the places. And I have a YouTube. I have all the things. And with that, I want to thank you. And I want to thank the Azure Summit for having me. And I'm sorry I am 1 minute over. And thank you so very much for having me. Hi, Simon. Hi.
Wow, Tanya, that was absolutely amazing. I would say very well paced. You talked about zones, you talked about distributions, you talked about water flowing in the data center. And you know what? The best part is that people really listen to you. And go ahead and check the comments. There's somewhere around 100 comments. People have literally answered what they feel about cloud, what they feel about traditional data centers. So that was an absolutely amazing session. Really enjoyed hosting you, Tanya. Any final thing you want to? And it's a lot of community thing that you do. I checked the last slides here. I also went to this community.wehackpurple.com. Any final thing you want to plug in before we move to the next session?
I have an Azure security course at We Hack Purple, and you should check it out.
I don't know how to find that link, but I'll sort of added it.
So academy.wehackpurple.com.
All right.
Thank you, Simon.
All right. I'm going to put it in the chat. All right, I got
Thank
it.
you.
So I have dropped in the chat. So please go ahead, everyone, and check that out. Thank you so much, Tanya. Please take care of yourself. We would love to host you back. And yeah, see you soon. Bye. Take care.
Bye.
All right, with that, we move to our next session. Tanya delivered an absolutely amazing session on cloud native security. I believe this is something many people really wanted to learn around security. And now we have another session by Ferenc, who's going to talk about Azure Synapse Serverless SQL Pool. This is, I believe, session number 18 just on Azure SQL. I mean, people really want to learn SQL. And so we have sessions for you. And if you're watching us on Learn TV, we have dropped from Learn TV. No, there's no point of saying if you're watching us on Learn TV because we have already dropped. Never mind. Let's go ahead and invite our next speaker, Ferenc, to Cloud Summit 2021. Welcome, Ferenc. Welcome to Cloud Summit 2021.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you. It's Friday, so in other ways, it's a really good day.
Sometimes I'm really lazy on Friday, to be honest. If someone would ask me to work in the afternoon time of Friday, I'm kind of lazy, and never mind. But what time is it at your place, actually?
At 6 p.m.
Oh my goodness, I caught you at the wrong time.
No, it's absolutely good for a Synapse SQL pool.
Yeah, absolutely amazing topic, friends. Let me tell you, this is something serverless SQL pool people really want to go ahead and learn while we are taking the registration form. So please feel free to go ahead and share screen, and then we can get started. And everyone who's watching, this session is a Q&A session. After this session ends, we'll take the questions from you. So please feel free to go ahead and ask the question in the comments. Ferenc, I see you have shared your screen. I have added it to the stream. Everybody can see it. And next 40-45 minutes is all yours.
Okay. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Ferenc Csonka, and in the next 40-45 minutes, I will speak about Azure Synapse Serverless SQL, especially for one approach to build logical data warehouses or self-service BI or BI sandboxes over data lakes and some kind of databases. First of all, just who I am. I'm speaking from Budapest, which is the capital city of Hungary. I have a PhD in computer science from computer graphics. I have a data platform MVP award. And nowadays I'm a public speaker in a lot of Power BI and Azure data platform topics. And nowadays I'm a Power BI Azure expert and trainer. So let's jump into the details. If somebody doesn't know what is Azure Synapse Analytics or why is it a big buzzword nowadays, so I just would like to summarize what is it. So it is Microsoft limitless unified data platform to create a good data platform for your data analytics projects. It is able to ingest data from on-premises, cloud data, software as a service data, or streaming data into a cloud environment where the basis, all of the thing is available in an Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, and you are able to run SQL and Spark workloads over this data lake. Today in this session, we will focus for the SQL part, but we will mention also the Spark part. As I mentioned, it is a unified data platform, so it has a unified user interface called Synapse Studio. We will see it several times today. And there are a lot of features which needed for a unified data platform to integrate different services, to manage for monitoring stuff, security, etc., etc. So it is a very big deal. From Microsoft, I could say it is a one-stop shop. Everything is available in this big package. And we selected only one component from this big package. It is called Serverless SQL pool. And I have to confess that there are multiple SQL pools within this Azure Synapse Analytics. One, it is called Dedicated SQL Pool. Formerly, it was known as Azure SQL Data Warehouse. And if somebody doesn't know it, it is a massively parallelly processing engine, a cloud data warehouse, which is really good data warehouse in the cloud if you have a lot of data. Besides this, there is this serverless SQL pool. So what is this serverless SQL pool? As the name suggests, serverless, of course it is not true. So in the background, there are lots of servers which handles this SQL pool. The serverless means that you don't have to think about when I will post this serverless SQL pool and resume this serverless SQL pool compared to a dedicated SQL pool, or you maybe know that you have to sometimes stop and start a virtual machine within Azure. Using this serverless SQL pool, you don't have to do anything like this. You have to pay only for the data that is processed when you are executing SQL queries. And what kind of SQL queries you are able to execute against the data lake? it is a T-SQL. So like in a Microsoft SQL Server, if you are a T-SQL people, you will really like this technology because it is absolutely the same. We will see some differences. There are some limitations compared to a normal SQL Server, but the same language that you are using for SQL Server, you are able to reuse this knowledge in this serverless SQL pool. And why we are speaking about this serverless SQL pool, besides that I could run T-SQL against the data lake, because if you ever work with a data lake, I am sure you experience the situation that there are a lot of CSV files, Parquet files, or other kinds of files, and you would like to know that, okay, what is the shame for this data file? Or, okay, this is a 10 gigabyte CSV file. I don't want to download to my laptop. So how can I grab some data from this 10 gigabyte CSV file? So such data exploration and data grabbing solutions could be fulfilled by the serverless SQL pool. But there is another thing, and for this session, this is my topic, is that besides then exploring the data within this data lake, it's very typical nowadays that we have in on-premise environment Microsoft SQL Server with a lot of databases, and the customers are just creating new and new databases for their own self-service BI reasons. For example, create a BI sandbox, play with the data from different other databases within the same SQL server. And that's why they have to upload a lot of data into the same SQL Server relational database. But on the other hand, nowadays everything is about the cloud, as this Cloud Summit is also about it. So we are just moving the on-premises databases to the cloud, and we realized that maybe this is not the best way to reproduce and migrate something from the on-premises environment to the cloud environment, that if we would like to do a BI sandbox where I could play with my favorite item managed data warehouse, and I would like to enrich this information with some own custom data, how can I do it in the cloud in a much more better way, maybe a bit less expensive way? For this, we should use the data lake, because data lake could handle big data, we could load tons of data, we could process, transform a lot of data within the data lake. So this is the place where logically we should handle this kind of sandboxes, these logical data warehouses. So if I found something interesting on a data lake and I would like to create from this interesting data a star schema, for example, which could fulfill a Microsoft Power BI report, maybe I could do it within the data lake instead of loading the data itself and into a SQL relational database, and also create this BI sandbox within a SQL database. So the more important logical way to use this BI self-service BI solution is to use the serverless SQL pool. And within this session, I would like to show some use cases how to do it. So the serverless SQL pool is able to execute T-SQL queries against the data lake, and it could be useful for data exploration and creating new databases, like a self-service database with a lot of tables, with, for example, a data mart or a star schema model. But besides this, on the data lake, we could found several Spark tables and Spark databases, because the Spark is also work on a data lake, and the Spark component is also available in this Azure Synapse Analytics. So another interesting advantage of the serverless SQL pool is that if you have some Spark background, or you like to write PySpark or SQL from the Spark engine, then the data that is available on the data lake via the Apache Spark tables, it is also possible to read by T-SQL queries from the serverless SQL pool. How it works? Because in the same Synapse Analytics environment, we have this Apache Spark for Synapse and the serverless SQL pool, and they use the same shared metadata store, the Hive store. They are just syncing the tables between the two different systems, the two different components. So you are able to query using T-SQL queries of these Spark tables. And why is it good? So I could grab data from CSV files, from Parquet files, which are available on the data lake, but I could grab data also from Spark tables, which is also on the same data lake, using T-SQL queries, creating some nice solution for example, a star schema. And then I am able to expose this star schema towards the Power BI, Excel, or some other BI tools. So I believe that's why this serverless SQL is a really important technology within the whole Synapse component environment. As I mentioned, it supports T-SQL queries. Most of the things are interestingly supported, but there are some limitations, and you will understand why there are some limitations. The most important limitation that it is not containing data within the SQL server. So it doesn't contain any data, so you are not able to create tables. Rather, you are able to create databases. Within the database, you are able to create views, schemas, stores, procedures. So you are execute select commands. You are able to execute DDL statements, but you are not able to store data within this serverless SQL pool, which means we don't have tables. We are not able to cache the queries. At this moment, it means that if you execute a complex select command, for example, for 10 seconds, and then you execute once again, then it will take again 10 seconds. And it is important because I mentioned it is a serverless SQL pool. You pay only for the data process. So if you execute something 2 times, then you will pay a double price. Okay, but the main message that you are able to execute a lot of T-SQL queries against data lakes. And there are some similar technologies, so maybe it is not a new technology for you just in Synapse. Maybe you heard about Amazon Athena or Databricks Serverless SQL. These are very, very similar competitor technologies. I have to confess also that this serverless SQL pool, Microsoft created an absolutely new SQL engine called Polaris. It's a highly distributed and parallelly processed engine. At this moment, it is used only in the serverless SQL pool, but maybe later it will be used for other technologies also. So let's jump to see what kind of use cases we are using serverless SQL in our customers, at our customers. So the most typical one is that we have a data lake with different zones, because a data lake, if you don't organize into zones, it will be a data swamp sooner or later. So we just grab some data from one of the zone and try to reproduce this data in an absolutely different way. For example, create a star schema model, a data mart, or something which do some self-service BI stuff. So for this reason, I just will show immediately a short presentation. I've got a big flat white table in an Azure SQL database with 5 million rows. I'm using Synapse pipelines, which is in the background nearly an Azure Data Factory. So we just load the data into a data lake, into a row zone. Then from the row zone, I've just moved to an enrich zone, which means that I'm converting from CSV file to Parquet file. I'm removing all the unnecessary columns. I convert the columns to the appropriate data type. I enrich the data with some additional columns. So in the enrich zone, the Parquet files are really good for any other reasons, for machine learning or just creating a data mart as our purpose at this moment. So we will move the data into a so-called curated zone, and in this curated zone, I would like to create a BI sandbox, create some kind of star schema. But I don't want to use Spark, I don't want to use Azure Data Factory, rather I would like to use my T-SQL knowledge that is coming from my on-premises or cloud SQL Server knowledge. So then we will have this star schema. I will show how it looks like, and this star schema will be exposed to the Power BI, and then you are able to create nice Power BI reports. So this whole process could be done using the serverless SQL pool, because serverless SQL pool is able to create such star schema models. So I just would like to show first that this is the original data source. It's a flat white table with 5 million rows. And I just would like to jump into the Synapse Studio. So if somebody hasn't seen it, this is the unified user interface where you are able to see all your data, all the different stuff like SQL scripts, Jupyter notebooks, etc. And I have an integrate hub where I could see the different pipelines, data pipelines that moving the data and transform the data between the different systems. So at this moment, I could see that I have one data pipeline with 2 activities. First step in this activity is to move the data from the Azure SQL to the row zone in the data lake. And in the second step, I grab the data from the row zone in CSV format and transform this CSV to a Parquet format. And besides that, converting to Parquet, I'm just selecting only those columns which are really needed, for example, from 14 columns to 11 columns. Then I add 2 additional columns which could be enrich the data. So typically we add columns like this row is coming from which data pipeline run. So for example, run ID or date time for this run is also added. And finally, we just deliver this data as a Parquet file into the enrich zone. So using this one data pipeline, I am able to grab data from a data source and load into an enrich zone. And now we are at the place where from these Parquet files, which are available in the enrich zone, I would like to create such a data mart, such kind of star schema, which could fulfill my Power BI reports. So how can I do it? Using T-SQL. So I just would like to show some T-SQL scripts. This is the important part. So first of all, to use this serverless SQL, you have to create a so-called serverless database. You see at this moment, I'm using an engine called built-in. This built-in engine is the serverless SQL, and I'm using the Cloud Summit curated database. How can I do a new database within this serverless? I'm just going to the data. I'm calling that new SQL database and then serverless, and I could create as many databases as I would like to use. Okay, then if I've got this database, I am able to execute SQL script. First of all, I have to define a data source, an external data source, which could deliver the data for me. As I mentioned earlier, in these databases, in these serverless databases, we don't store anything. We use only external data sources. So here is the data lake where the data will come from. And then if I've got this data source, I could execute a select query like this. This select query means that select distinct region from open row set. This is the trick. And within the open row set, you are able to say that within the data lake where you found these Parquet files that could be useful for us. So in the enrich zone, there is some Parquet files which is loaded, as I showed earlier. And if I just execute this select, it takes some seconds. It goes to the data lake, process the data lake data, and then give back the result like it was a SQL database. I don't see in the background how it communicates with the data lake itself. And then because I could write this SQL query, then from this SQL query, I could create a view, and then I am able to query this view using normal T-SQL queries. But what I don't like in this solution, that every time if I would like to grab some data from the data lake, I have to write open row set and define where it is available, etc., and what kind of format is available, etc. So typically, the next step I usually do is that instead of using this open row set, I'm creating an external table. And before creating an external table, I'm creating some file formats to define as many things as possible previously. So for example, instead of writing every time if I would like to grab CSV file with comma delimiter and the data is starting on the second row, I just define, like here, an external file format for such delimitered files. Or if I would like to use a Parquet file which supports snappy data compression, I could write such a formula, and then later I could refer for this Parquet format using snappy compression. Using this name. And then after these definitions, I am able to create an external table. What is this external table? You could imagine like a table schema for the data that is available in Parquet format. So you see here that we say that this is the data source, these are Parquet files, the Parquet files are available here, and I would like to see the content of the Parquet files in these tables. Because I'm creating such an external table, then if I would like to reproduce the similar region dimension table where I could show the different regions in this big database, it's much easier to read. So originally it was a select from open row set. Now it is select from this external table. And because there is nothing open row set and Parquet files and file formats and anything else, the whole view definition looks like it is a SQL database. So I believe it's much more readable for SQL people. And similarly, we could reuse the sales external table for country dimension and all the other dimensions. And I just would like to show how it looks like the view for the facts sales table. So you are able to write inner joins, group bys, and all the typical things that we are using for a bigger SQL project. So if you just create the first Lego elements, what kind of files, what is the external data source, what is the external table, then you are good to go to create views. And these views are exposed to Power BI, for example, how it looks like. So you start your Power BI desktop and you would like to connect to a serverless SQL because Ferenc created this nice dimension and fact views. How you are able to connect to a serverless SQL, you have to go to the portal, Azure portal, and on the Azure portal, you are able to see what is the serverless SQL endpoint. And if you copy this endpoint, then you have to connect to a SQL server. So from Power BI perspective, it looks like a SQL server. On the other hand, it is not a SQL server, it is a serverless SQL pool. And then you are able to select which views you would like to import data and create your nice Power BI report. I just would like to show how it looks like in Power BI. I loaded all the data, imported all the data into Power BI. The relationships are automatically found. And then I could create a nice Power BI report. And this report is based on the serverless SQL pool views, which are based on the data lake. So when I loaded data into Power BI, I loaded the data through an interim solution. This is called the serverless SQL pool from the data lake itself. So somebody could ask that it is worth playing with this serverless SQL pool. I could directly connect to a data lake and load everything from the data lake. And my experience, if you would like to load something where the view calculates something bigger or do some joins or anything, serverless SQL pool is a better solution to load into Power BI than avoiding skipping the serverless SQL pool. So it is a really good performance solution, this serverless SQL pool. Or it is possible, because it looks like a SQL server, you are able to use direct query. For example, the fact table doesn't have just 5 million rows, as in my example, but maybe 100 million or bigger fact tables you have. Then you don't want to load everything into Power BI. Rather, using direct query, you would like to grab the data on the fly. So it is also possible, but if you use these views from the Power BI using the direct query, and from the views you are going to the data lake and do all the processing, it could lead to performance issues. So for such situations, we suggest that besides creating views, we always do another thing. It is called external table. External table is, you could imagine like a data export, creating a snapshot of your data. So whenever I execute this SQL script, I will create a new fact sales table in the curated layer using Parquet format, and the same select is generated to create this external table. The same select is available for the views. So the fact view and the external table fact is the same select, but the view is executed during on the fly, while the external table execution is once when you create the external table and it generates an output on the data lake. So instead of using the view, if you would like to use direct query from the Power BI through the serverless SQL, it's better to create this external table, and the fact sales would be an external table from the serverless SQL. So from Power BI, you are able to do the direct query sync. I just would like to show something.
Ferenc, can you zoom a little bit? Zoom, yeah.
Okay.
Better, thank you.
Okay, so for example, the fact sales is a direct query table. All the other tables are imported tables. So fact sales is now an external table. External table, you could imagine like a snapshot on your data lake after executing a SQL query. And using this external table, using the direct query, you are good to go to handle not just 5 million records, but rather more millions of records from your Power BI report. So until now, just to summarize where we are, we have Power BI reports which uses serverless SQL. In the serverless SQL, there are views and external tables which grabs the data from the data lake itself. The typical problem with the data lake is that it is not a transactional handling solution. So for example, if you just execute something and it fails, it could happen that the written file is incomplete and corrupted, or if you would like to delete one row in the normal data lake, and it is not possible in the normal data lake. Rather, it is possible to create a new file, override the old file with a new file where the deleted row is not available. So several issues are known and well known in the data lake. That's why some years ago the data lake started to growing, and this year it is available in general availability. So data lake is a solution to handle something like in a relational database called transaction handling and ACID things. Now it is available within the data lake itself. Data lake is very similar to a normal data lake. It has Parquet files, but it has some descriptional things to handle the transactional log. So the first question is that if I have such a delta lake files in my data lake, it is possible to reuse or query this delta lake within the serverless SQL pool, and the answer is yes. And I just show it very quickly how it looks like. So the same CSV file which is available in the row zone, I will load into an enrich zone and as a delta lake. And in the delta lake, I just remove some columns, some rows where the data is not Hungary. And then the same delta lake files could be read from the curated zone and exposed to Power BI similarly as the use case one. So how it looks like. I'm just going back to Synapse. And in the Synapse, I have a data pipeline. I just would like to show it very quickly. So grabbing a file from the row zone, selecting the appropriate columns, add additional columns, and finally deliver it as a delta file. And if it is delta file, I just would like to show how it looks like in a delta environment. In delta environment, you always have a folder called delta log. This delta log folder contains the so-called transactional log. So what is transactional log in relational databases? In the delta lake, it is the solution. And if I have another data pipeline, if I execute this another data pipeline, it will delete all the rows from this delta lake where the country equals to Hungary. So no rows in this delta lake where country equals to Hungary. I just would like to show how it looks like from SQL, serverless SQL. When I enter select before executing the deletion, I see that in the country dimension table, I have one row for Hungary and the country key is 67. On the other hand, after the deletion, so after the delete data pipeline executed, I just executed again the select star from v country delta, and I don't see any country in this country dimension where country equals to Hungary, so the data is deleted. What does it mean? Delta lake works, and the other thing is that from serverless SQL, you are able to execute T-SQL commands, queries against the delta lake files, and how it looks like in code, in server SQL code. So very, very similar to the Parquet files, but the file format is delta, not Parquet, rather delta. And again, I just created an external table where I'm using the delta file format. And then very, very similar to the previous one, I'm just executing select, which creates the views. And based on the view, I could create nice Power BI report similarly as use case one. So the only message here is that the delta lake could be used within Synapse, within Microsoft environments, and the serverless SQL pool is supporting this delta lake. So if you are thinking something like a data lake and you would like to delete, update, something modification or transaction handling, then you should use delta lake because delta lake is supported by serverless SQL pool. The next use case that I would like to highlight is the Spark tables I mentioned earlier, because Spark tables and the Spark metadata information is shared between the serverless SQL and the Spark. It is very simple to create a database, logical data warehouse over a Spark database. And I just would like to show it very quickly again. It will be very, very similar to the previous one. Now I don't have to define something very special thing. I have one Spark database. This is the name. And from this Spark table, from this schema, I could grab data from a table. And from this table, I could create nice dimensions tables. And if I have a dimension table, similarly, I could create fact tables. Then I have the star schema. And then again, it is exposed to Power BI, and I could create Power BI reports over Spark tables. Okay, so this is the third situation when I could grab data from data lake. First was the CSV Parquet file, second was the Delta Lake, and the third is the Spark tables. And there are some supports for databases. Unfortunately, not the best, I have to say, at this moment, but as I know, Microsoft is working to have more support for the databases. So it looks like a SQL Server, it looks like I'm writing T-SQL queries, so it would make sense that I could run T-SQL queries against dedicated SQL pool because it is within the Synapse workspace, or maybe I could run T-SQL queries against Azure SQL databases. And unfortunately, at this moment, it is not working. But as I know, Microsoft is really working on this, so in a bit longer time, it will be available. And then you are able to combine data from data lake, from SQL relational databases, and create nice Power BI reports from absolutely different databases, from databases and data lakes. Fortunately, there are some support for databases via Synapse links, so you are able to grab data from Azure Cosmos databases and Microsoft Dataverse databases, and over these databases you are able to create again dimensions and facts, views or external tables, and then exposed again to Power BI, and then you are able to create Power BI reports over Cosmos DB or over Dataverse, and the interim is the serverless SQL pool. I just would like to show quickly how it looks like to create such Power BI reports or create these logical data warehouses, prototypes over the Cosmos DB. So if somebody doesn't know what is Cosmos DB, it is a distributed and highly customizable, not just structured, but semi-structured data storing engine. And if you just store data in this Cosmos DB, it stores automatically in the so-called transactional store. So like in an OLTP application, stores the data in a transactional way. But it is possible to enable for Cosmos DB that every time it just duplicate the data and sync some of the data into a so-called analytical store. And from this analytical store, using the HDAP technology, you are able to execute T-SQL queries against the analytical store and create in the curated zone, again, dimension tables and fact tables. And based on the fact table and dimension table, you are able to create Power BI reports. And again, we will use the serverless SQL to do this whole stuff. How to do it? You have to go to the Cosmos DB and enable this Azure Synapse link for the whole Cosmos DB. And also you have to enable the analytical store for any container. If somebody doesn't know what is container is something like a table or an entity within a database. So in Cosmos DB there are databases, and within databases there are containers. This is the entity or table. So you are able to granularly say that I would like to move this data to the analytical store, because if it is available in the analytical store, it could be queried using T-SQL from serverless SQL. How it looks like, I just would like to show one script. So again, I would like to create a select star from open row set, and now we will get the data from Cosmos DB, from a Cosmos DB database, from one of the entity called closing, and that's all. Again, we are able to write SQL query, create views or external tables, and grab data from these views because we have this Synapse link to the analytical store, which is store the data in analytical format in the Cosmos DB. So again, serverless SQL pool supports T-SQL against the database. And the fifth use case I will just show in the PPT, that if you have a database, if somebody doesn't know what is it, if you are creating a Power Apps model-driven application, or you have Dynamics 365, in the background there is a Dataverse database, and it is not so easy to connect to this Dataverse database, so grab data is not so easy, but it is possible now using Synapse links to continuously export the data from the Dataverse to the data lake, and because continuously it is exported, then data is in the data lake and you are able to do the very similar things as previously. Or again, run T-SQL queries against the data lake. So the final message here is that you are able to grab data from data lake, from Delta Lake, from Spark, from Cosmos DB, from Dataverse, and create views, external tables, and ad hoc queries above these different data sources using the serverless SQL pool. And because we have views and external tables, and serverless SQL shows it like a SQL server, we are able to expose it to Power BI and create Power BI reports over this serverless SQL. And one thing that I would like to show, and then I will finish my session, is that I highly recommend this serverless SQL for BI, self-service BI stuff, for BI sandboxes, etc. But if you start to work like this, and you will have tons of different BI sandboxes for your colleague, he has 5, another colleague has 10 different BI data sandboxes, then later and later you are not able to know that where is this information, which BI sandbox I would like to use for my ad hoc report that is needed to done within some hours for my boss. So if you need some data governance, Azure Purview is the answer from Microsoft nowadays for data governance. And the good news is that Purview is able to scan such Synapse serverless SQL pool and grab the data, what kind of tables are available, what kind of views, what kind of etc. available in a serverless SQL pool, and then you could use the Purview for this. So when you, and I will show it immediately how it looks like in Purview. So if you start to scan in Purview just to see what kind of data assets available in a serverless SQL, you are able to see that not just dedicated SQL pool, but also serverless SQL pool databases are available for scan. So Purview could grab data from serverless SQL. And I just would like to show, so if somebody hasn't seen a Purview, this is the starting screen. You are able to browse assets in a Purview. And you see that this Cloud Summit curated database, it is a serverless SQL database, and I could start to grab what kind of schema is available within the schema, what kind of dimension views and etc. available, or I could start to find that what is the different data sets within the serverless SQL pool, which contains the name, country, and then I could maybe find this nice view which could be useful for my Power BI report. So later, if you have a lot of BI sandboxes, logical data warehouses using the serverless SQL pool, then Purview could be a good choice to connect, and it will be your data asset management tool, the data governance tool. So that's on my side. I hope I could expose this solution, this serverless SQL for you, because I believe for data lakes and later for databases, it's a good solution to create your self-service BI solutions.
That was a very, very detailed session, friends. You must look at the comments. People have been asking a lot of questions, right? I know you you might have a dry throat, but maybe let's go ahead and try to answer a couple of them. The first one is by Sarvaran. He's asking, I'm sorry for the name. Can you please share some of the best practices using dedicated SQL pool? Maybe not all, maybe if any first thing that you'd like to go ahead and do it with SQL pool.
Okay, so dedicated SQL pool is the formerly known as the SQL data warehouse, and it is a massively parallel processing engine, which means that you have a lot of different nodes where you could execute data processing things. You don't have to use one server, rather like in a big network you are able to distribute an execution, and there are a lot of best practices. I highly recommend that Microsoft has a really good documentation of the best practices. When I'm teaching this topic, I also refer it because it has a lot of good ideas, so I highly recommend it.
All right, let's quickly go ahead and answer some of the questions. Can Synapse Analytics import data from XLS files stored under a file system?
Okay, so Synapse Analytics has a component called Synapse Pipelines, which is the Azure Data Factory, and it supports Excel as an input source. And so you are good to go to grab a local Excel file from your on-premises environment, load using the Synapse Pipelines to the cloud, to a data lake, and from that moment, it is again the same playing that from the data lake, do the transformations, etc., etc. So yes, it is supported.
You're rocking, friends. The questions won't stop coming. Delta Lake cannot overwrite Parquet files. Is it correct? It is to all of our files.
Okay, so as I understand, and I have to confess, I'm not a Delta Lake expert. As I see, there are a lot of Parquet files, and yes, it is not override the Parquet file. Rather, it says that new files are available, and there is a mechanism in the background that the old files are removed after 30 days or something like this, so there is a retention policy, and there is a folder called transaction log, delta log, and it contains the transaction log to handle this. I deleted some rows, I updated these rows, I inserted some rows, so looks like it works like a relational database. This is the way with this whole so-called lakehouse approach, which is delivered by the Databricks guys.
All right, final two questions of the day that I'm gonna throw at you. The first one is, can we have serverless SQL and server required SQL for one application at some point of time?
Oh, server required SQL.
I don't get that, yeah. Yeah, I don't get that. Maybe Komal, you would like to reframe it, or maybe there's a typo. Let's take a final question from Trent. Fred is saying, do you consider this to be in the MS Dataverse, or is it another product class? I think he's talking about the Azure Synapse.
If I understand well the question, is it good to use Dataverse or not? I believe now it is on the matured level that it is good to start to work with. Previously, 1 year ago, 2 years ago, I was not at that point, but nowadays I believe it is arrived to the appropriate stage. So I could imagine production projects within Dataverse.
All right, so looks like Ganesh says very well explained what is serverless.
Thank you.
So he says more productive info. Let's see what else we have. Hasnan says, thanks, Ferenc. It was informative.
Thank you.
There are a lot of comments coming in. We'll have to stop it. All right. So, okay, what does Keshav says? Keshav says that was really deep dive session, but I love each and every simplified detail shared, although I missed quite a bit. Never mind, Keshav, please register and we'll send you the recordings. Ferenc, that was absolutely amazing session. There's a lot of effort that you have added in the slide, and there's so much you covered in just about 40 minutes. Thank you so much. Any final thing you want to plug in before we move to the next session?
I would like to thank you for having me, and overall this whole Cloud Summit, earlier Azure Summit, nowadays Cloud Summit, is a fantastic event. I just able to watch the videos only in the evening because during the day I have to work, and all the speakers are doing great job. So, and also you organizers.
So, Ferenc, thank you. I really appreciate you accepting the invitation. I know people have work to do, but still they take up your time and they do the community contributions. Thank you so much, Ferenc. Please take care of yourself. We would love to have you back very soon. And yeah, have a nice day ahead. And thank you so much. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, with that, we move to our next session. We are already 5 minutes into her session, but I hope she won't mind. So our next session is by Shweta. Shweta is going to talk about Azure Cognitive Services, on how you can detect and analyze face. It's always very interesting. Azure Cognitive Services are always very interesting. And yeah, without any further ado, let's invite Shweta to Cloud Summit 2021. Hi, Shweta, welcome. You're muted. You are muted.
Hi, Simon. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, I'm really happy to see you, Shweta. I like these live shows. This helps me connect people. Although I'm sitting here in India, you are in US. So thank you so much for accepting the invitation. And I'm really excited for your session because, as I said, Azure Cognitive Services are very interesting. So I won't take much of your time. Please feel free to go ahead and share your screen, and then you can get started.
Sure.
And everyone who's watching, please feel free to go ahead and ask a question in the comments using #CloudSummit. And after Shweta's session, we're going to do a lucky draw from the comments, a live lucky draw from the comments, and someone will win Cloud Summit swag kit. I don't have your screen yet. Okay.
Are you able to see now?
Yeah, I can see you're inside StreamYard. Yeah, now you've moved towards your slides. Everybody can see your slides. And Shweta, next 45 minutes is all yours.
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for giving me this honor so that I can speak in front of you once again. And I always enjoy talking in the conferences, and C# Corner provides me a very good platform to work towards this. And for more about me, like I'm working on the community contributions. It's been like many years now. And right now I'm holding rank 27 globally on the C# Corner and had been C# Corner MVP for 4 times now. And professional side, I'm currently working with Microsoft as a VDash in Azure Core Compute team. So we recently had a Power Pack session, and I hope most of the minds are still working on digesting that. So thinking about that aspect, I thought I will try to make this session pretty lightweight and very easygoing, and like everyone need not to think so much about it. So if you have any question during this session, please feel free to ask me at the end. Otherwise, we can also have a look on my Twitter account. So let's quickly look at the agenda. Okay, so I will start by setting up the context on what is face analysis and what are the daily challenges or the problems which we can solve it using this face analysis and the recognition techniques. We will also have a look at what are the key face attributes which are making this face analysis possible. And then we will have a brief discussion on what is Azure Face API, which is again an offering from the cognitive services side. And we will also have a quick demo, and we will see how we can call this Face API using client library as well as the REST API. And at the end, we can have a walkthrough of a very interesting use case without writing even a single line of code. So when it comes to face analysis, it all begins with face detection. And face detection is one of the major area which comes under like image analysis. And what it does is try to identify a face, human face, in any image. So best example I can take is from the security side is like every day we are using our laptops or the mobiles to unlock the screen. But the face analysis is not restricted only to the device security, but it also works very well with the public security, wherein we can read the feeds of the surveillance cameras to monitor and track the criminal activities which are happening around. And apart from that, we can think of banking transactions. So there are few banking transactions and the banking firms which doesn't allow anyone to proceed until the face recognition is done. So there could be many more examples we can think of. On the health sector side, the very useful example I can give you is like to detect the diagnosis, or we can say that if there is any human or the genetic disorders happen, and due to that any facial expressions or the facial appearance has changed. So there we can go ahead and use this face analysis. As of now, it is not that much into the industry, but still it could be a very good scope for anyone who is looking towards genetic disorder identification. And recently I read a news in which a company is working on making a device which will be like very useful for the blind people to identify the emotions of the person they are talking with. So let's say a blind person is talking with a person and that person smiles during the conversation. So in that case, device can detect the emotions or read the expressions and signal the blind people that, oh, using the vibration or any other way, that, oh, this person is enjoying the conversation. Another interesting area is the marketing. So in marketing, lots of researchers are using the face analysis data to read the emotions, like whether the customer is happy, how the product is doing. And here we have noticed that there are many cameras which are running 24/7 in the supermarkets and many stores. So they keep used to track we can use those cameras or the videos to track this by reading the individual frames out of that. And it will tell the product owner or the store owner that this particular person or these many number of people were not happy while leaving the store. So this is how they can work towards the improvement of their store as well as the product. Another interesting thing is we can use it to track the attendance in the school, university, or even an employer can do so. And last but not the least, image content analysis is one of the most common among all of these. Now, basically in a nutshell, we can say faces are everywhere. Wherever you see, you will see faces. So, and we human are lucky enough to detect any face with blink of eye. But is it that easy for a computer to recognize that? Is it that easy for a computer to identify in an image that, oh, this is a human picture or this is a face of a human? Or another example we can say is it that easy for a computer to review and say that, okay, these both pictures belong to the same person? I wouldn't say yes here, because deciding such things involves so many calculations, so many parameters which needs to be read. And for that, computer needs extra intelligence to it. So to add that extra intelligence, definitely AI will come into the picture. And when there is AI models and the algorithms play a very vital role there. Now, very interesting question. Is it that easy to build the AI model? May I, being a developer, go ahead and quickly do it? I wouldn't say yes, because building an AI model requires a lot of knowledge with respect to the data, with respect to the many parameters, with respect to the domain. And when we are saying that I wouldn't say it's 100% impossible, but it won't be that much effective. Rather, a research scientist or a data scientist working on the same thing, because scientists do have a knowledge of how to analyze parameters, how to deal with thousands and thousands of parameters in a one shot, how to conclude the result. So all these things requires a very good person having educated towards that artificial intelligence side. Now, question is, can I do this? Of course I can do this, because now we have Azure Cognitive Services for our rescue. And using those Azure Cognitive Services, we need not to work or think that much about what is going behind the curtain or what all parameters are required or what all algorithms are being used. So if you can have a look, there are around 27 landmarks which Face API internally uses to detect a human face. So if you look at an eye or a nose, there are around 6 to 7 points. So landmarks are the points which can be easily recognizable on any face. So using these points, many calculations, many complex algorithms are being run, and then it is saying that, oh, you can use this Face API. So now today, being a developer without knowing anything about the machine learning, AI, algorithm, still I can go ahead and I can quickly fire one HTTP request and I will have my results ready with me. So now Face API, like I said, it falls under the umbrella of the cognitive services, and it is like AI-based service. So what it can do is it can detect faces, it can recognize, as well as it can verify the faces for us. So there is a huge difference between detection and recognition. So detection only deals with identifying a face out of an image. And once detection is done, then only recognition and the verification takes place. So until and unless the image, the human face is identified, we cannot go ahead and perform the recognition and the verification activities. So recognition tells whether this face belongs to this human or not, or this face belongs to which human, or what is the name of the person, or whose face is this. Whereas verification deals with comparison aspects, the similarities, that whether these two faces belong to same person or not. So these are the three different things which we can do it using Face API. And particularly for my talk, I'm focusing only on the detection part. So with this much of introduction, let's have a quick look at the demo. So I have already created a desktop-based application, and I will try to browse an image. So of course, this is my image. And here you can see that I just browsed this image and I got an output. I received an output in the form of this red color mark. So this red color square shape signifies that, okay, this is the face which is identified by the API. Now, if I will hover over it, you can see that this image is like of a female, and
Shweta, can you hear me?
A smile, which is 0.9%. She's wearing glasses, so the overall expression is 98.2, which is neutral. Let's take one more image in which we have a group of people. So, okay, so in this image, you can see that it detected that there are three faces. There are three red mark over here, and each of these faces and the properties, we can see it by hovering over it. So this is a male with a smile of 1.5. So this 1.5 and 98.3, these are the confidence score which are returned by the API. I will quickly show you the code. So we are not going through each and every line. Rather, I would just focus on the key things. So here you can see that these are the two libraries which are required whenever you are working with the SDK, or I would say client libraries. And I got it pulled using the NuGet package manager. Next thing is we need the key and the endpoint. So for generating the key and the endpoint, we will quickly go to Azure portal and we'll search for Face APIs. Okay, so click on create. And here we can create an instance. So you can select the subscription which works for you. And here you can create a new resource group, or even you can choose the existing one. The region, you should choose the one which is very closer to you. And here you need to supply the name of the instance. And here comes the pricing tier. So there are two pricing tiers. So if you are just experimenting the things and if nothing is in production, we can go for this free one. And the second one is the standard one. They both have their number of calls per second, which is permitted. Now, at the end, you can see there is a checkbox. So using this checkbox, you are acknowledging that this particular instance will not be used for any police activities or to track any criminal sort of things. So once all these things are populated, you can click on review and create. So I'm not going to do it because it's going to take a few minutes for me. Rather, I will quickly show you the one which I have already created. So once the instance is created, you will end up seeing the page similar to this. And on the left-hand side, you can click on keys and the endpoint. So this is the key, and this is the endpoint, which I have just pasted over here. And using these two, then I have constructed the face client. Now, the important thing is I can show you how and where we are making a call. So this is the line where you can see that I'm calling a function detect with stream async. So what this function is, this function takes lot many parameters, but I have just taken the bare minimum ones. The first and the foremost parameter talks about the data. So it's the image in the form of stream. Second parameter says is a Boolean, and it says, would you like to return the face ID or not? Third one says, would you like to return the landmarks or not? And the fourth one, which is the most important, it talks about the attributes, what all attributes we are interested in. So you must have noticed that during the demo, we were just seeing these 4 ones: gender, emotion, smile, and glasses. But there are many more. There are many more, which you can see around 15 attributes are there, which you can definitely track it: age, gender, blur, mask, and all these things. So whatever parameters you need to track, you just need to furnish it over here in this array, and things will, the API will return the response accordingly. Now, rest of the code, I would not prefer to.
Shweta, I'm really sorry to interrupt. Can you zoom it a little bit? Yeah. Zoom in. Yeah. A little more. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So rest of the code, I would not prefer, because those are like housekeeping code, how to change the image into stream and what to do when mouse over happens. So we can quickly skip it, and we can go on to the next part, which is like REST API. So for that, you can quickly Google it rather than, because I'm very weak in remembering the URLs. So I personally do not remember those. This API reference. Okay, so you can click on this link, and here you can see there are a bunch of references provided for all the different functions and the functionalities which are available. Now, whenever we are working with REST API, one thing is, like I personally do, is go to Postman and just hit and try, do it, and see how the API is behaving or what the API is returning. But in case of Face API, you need not to use the Postman itself, whereas everything is inbuilt in the browser. So you can see that there are certain APIs for certain functionalities for identification. For these 4 are for identification, and here you can have a different like segregation, detection, verification, identification. So let's quickly jump on to the detection part. So as soon as you will click on this, you will get that left-hand side, there are a bunch of all the possible APIs. And this is one of the most important things. So these are the regions in which this particular API is available. Now, in order to try it out, you can quickly select the region which is closest to you. So I will go with the West US. And the very cool thing which I really like about this is here you will get the complete documentation, what that particular API is doing, what all parameters, or what is the image format which is expected when performing the face analysis. So definitely you can go through all these, but I would rather like to highlight this particular thing, detection models. So as of now, there are 3 detection models, 01, 02, and 03. So in case of 01, it works only if you have images which are taken in a very close fashion, or I would say near frontal face detection. It means your image would be pretty clear and everything is clearly visible and the faces are like inclined towards the camera itself. Whereas in case of detection 2, this model, you can use it whenever you have side faces or bit of blurry faces. And the third one, which is the most recent one, detection 3, it is useful to detect the faces having mask, which we really need nowadays. So I will quickly experiment with this one and will show you how to do. And again, there are recognition model, which probably I will not discuss in detail. So there are 4 recognition model, and the 4th one is the most recent one and provides result with the most high accuracy. And it is recommended to use the latest one here. Okay, so here, this is the host name which automatically got populated based on the region we have selected. These are the various parameters which you can hit and try, whatever you want, you can try. So let's keep all these as a default one, and I will try to change it to mask. I want to see how it works with mask. Recognition model is 4. And here you have noticed that this is the 03 model, which I'm selecting because I'm going to input an image which is having a mask. Now, header site, application and JSON I will keep as is, and here we need a key. So for key, we can go to this and click on this and simply copy this key 1. Even you can take key 2, no worries at all. Once this is done, next thing it is expecting is the image URL. So for that, I have already uploaded few images in Azure storage, so we can quickly go and grab those. Go to containers, images, and so this is the image which is having a mask. So let's go and place it over here. Okay, we are good to go. Let's click on send. Okay, so you can see that the response is returned because we just selected 2 parameters here, face ID and the mask. And that's the reason we received only 2 things. So this is the face ID here, and this is the face mask, which is saying that image, the human in the image is having a face mask and nose and mouth are covered. So you've seen that how easy it is to verify or to try out these REST APIs rather than going and typing the entire source code or using the Postman to set up the headers and all those things. Next, I will take you through one of the interesting use case. Okay, so this particular use case, like I'm inspired with this because my kid has just joined the kindergarten. And what we are trying to do here is like, it will try, the teacher wants to identify how many smiling faces are there in the classroom and how many faces are really upset. So what teacher can do is, one thing is like, an important thing is like, nowadays there are many kids who are very excited to go to school, but at the same time there are few kids who would still like to stay back at home with mom. So in that case, what teacher thought is, let's go and ask each and every individual that, hello baby, how are you doing? Are you enjoying my class? Are you enjoying this activity? But the problem with this approach is there are few kids who keeps crying, and they are not comfortable or pretty comfortable to express what they're feeling. So in that case, teacher cannot go with this particular approach. So one thing what she can do is she can click pictures at random point of time during the random activities, and later on she can sit and analyze those pictures that, oh, this kid is smiling in this activity, this kid is not enjoying at all. Now we will see how we can automate this entire workflow without writing even a single line of code. So let's go back to Azure portal. And I will execute this workflow using the logic apps. So I'm not going to discuss the detail of each and every parameters of the logic app. Rather, we'll simply go ahead and create it. So here I'm selecting a resource group, which I'm already having. Model type, I'm taking consumption, and here I can give a name of the logic app. Hope it is available. Okay. And the region, as I'm in Washington, I would go for West US. Let's not enable the analytics. Click on review and create. Click on create. It shouldn't take more than a few seconds. Okay, so go to the resource. And here there are many triggers defined, but I would prefer to go with the blank logic app. So what we are going to do as a first step is we need to read Azure storage whenever an image is uploaded by the teacher there. So for that, let's search for the connector which works with Azure storage. Sorry. Okay, so I'm selecting this one, and let's select the triggering action, which is whenever blob is added or modified. Here we need to provide the name of the connection strings. So we can provide name as blobcon. Access key, we need to grab it from the portal itself. So I can open another tab over here. Let's close this one. So it is expecting what is the name of Azure storage account. So go here and click on the storage, and we just need to grab this one. So I'm copying it over here. Next thing is Azure storage access key. So it could be taken from, let's minimize this first. Okay, access keys. And here keys are listed. So I will quickly click on show and copy first one. Okay, so next thing, it is expecting few more parameters. So what is the Azure storage name? So account name. So this is the one which we have provided. Now we need to supply which container we want to track. So fortunately, there is only one container, but if there are multiple, it will list down all those containers. How many number of items you want to return? So let's go with one as of now. How do you want to track? How frequently do you want to track? So I would give 5 seconds. So every 5 seconds, it will go and check whether is there any new upload happened in Azure storage or anything modified there. So once this is done, I will click on next step. So here, till this point, we have read the Azure storage. Now we need to perform the face analysis. So let's click on the face API, and it will give you the connector. So this is the one. You can select this one. Okay, and here you can see that all the APIs are listed. Few are in preview. So I will go ahead and quickly select the one which is for detect faces. So click on detect faces. Okay, again, we need to provide the connection name. So I can give face API con. And the API key, account key we need. So for account key, we can go to the face API instance, which we have just created. Which was already created with me. So it is, okay. Click on keys and copy this one. So this is the key. Next, we need the site URL, which is nothing but the endpoint. So I will also grab this one and click on create. Okay, so next we need to provide the image URL where our images are saved. So all our images are saved in Azure storage. So let's go to the storage back and click on containers. This is the images container I want to read. I will go to properties and will grab this path from here. So grab this path. I will remove the backside. And now we also need to mention what this path is talking about. So it contains the list of paths. So from here, we can select list of files path. Once it is done, we can click on next step, or rather we can save it once at least. Okay, so save successful. Now images are uploaded, faces are detected. Next, we need to pull in the result of the analysis and push it to some storage wherein teacher can go ahead and have a look at it. So to make it simple, let's go ahead and push this analysis result into an Excel sheet. So for creating an Excel sheet, I would be using, let's go here, I can quickly show you. So search for Excel connector. And here you would get two for Excel. So one is for Business Online and another one is for Drive. So in order to use this business one, you should have an Office 365 subscription with you. So I will go with the one which is mentioned over here. So I will open my OneDrive. And so this is my OneDrive. And here I've already created one folder, Summit. And it is already having an Excel sheet which is empty. So let's give it a few seconds to get it open. Okay, so now a teacher is interested only in knowing whether kids are smiling or not. And if yes or no, then what is the gender specifically? And that's the reason I have just taken these two parameters, gender and the smile. Face ID is just for tracking purpose. You can definitely skip it. So these are the 4 columns which I have created, and I'm going to close this. So let's go here and try for Excel Online. Okay, so if you are selecting it for the first time, it will ask you to log into your OneDrive. For me, I have already done it, so it didn't ask me. So add a new row into the table. So select this one. It is asking me now. So let's give it a few seconds. Okay, so it's signed in automatically. Here we need to provide the files. So under submit, we have a file named results.xlsx. So I'm providing that. And we need to select the table, which is the table when I have already created in my Excel. And last and the most important thing is about the parameters. So what all parameters you need to map with the analysis results. So let's go with all the 4 columns which we have created. Now the timestamp. So timestamp, you can map it with any time. So I will go ahead and check the last modified list of files, last modified. So let's. Okay, so it will give you the last modified time. Next, we need the face ID. So there you can see on the right hand side, there is already a face ID. I will quickly select it. Then gender, we can select it. So here is the gender and the smile. So if it is, sorry. So if it is not appearing, we can search it over here. So click on smile. Okay, and we are good to go. Let's save it and see how things are. Okay, so app is saved. I will go to overview and I will keep this open so that we can track whether it is triggering or not. Meanwhile, we will go ahead and upload one of the image to our storage so that it can trigger the workflow. So I will upload an image. So this is an image which I have taken it from internet, and it is of like kindergarten class kids. Click on upload. So you can see that image is uploaded 1.jpg. And now I need to wait for a few seconds, like 5 seconds, so that this flow gets triggered. Let's give it a few seconds. Okay, so it got triggered and it is showing it is successful. Now to verify it, we can quickly go to OneDrive. We'll refresh it and let's open it. Cool, so we have these 6 rows got added recently, and I can quickly show you the image which I browsed. So, okay, so this is the image which I just uploaded to Azure storage, and you can see there are 6 faces, and here also we can see there are 6 rows recently added. So out of all these kids, 1 kid is smiling little less, but rest 5 are like happy. I would say they're laughing, and that's the reason it is showing 0.98 for one of the kids. Probably it's she, the first kid, which is shown over here. Now teacher is free to use this data anywhere. She can perform any statistical calculations, she can plot a graph, or she can do whatever she wants with this one. So in that case, she need not to go to each and every kid and to ask how they are doing. Rather, she can directly conclude the status using this particular sheet. And one thing is, like, you may get some other numbers like 0.03, 0.13. So in that case, teacher can define some threshold that whenever the smile is having score more than 0.5, she will be considering, he or she will be considering those kids in the smiling category itself. So these criteria she can decide. So I think I'm almost done. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much I have for you guys.
That was absolutely great, Shweta. You made an entire project in just 40 minutes, right? So that was absolutely amazing. You can come back on StreamYard. Oh.
Sure. So actually, I thought even I attended many sessions and decided that I will not pour so much technicalities because anyways, my head is also roaming, like to digest things, it will take time. So let's keep it simple with just routine examples.
So there have been many questions throughout the live show, throughout your session. Let's take a couple of them. It's first by Komal. I think while you were giving the demo, she asked, do we need to use all three detection model at once, or can we use independently because sometimes it would be good for security purpose? What do you think?
Actually, I tried to use all three together, but I couldn't do so. So I believe at a time you have to choose only one detection model because the API will take that as a parameter.
Okay.
So if you are not passing the detection model, it will by default take 0, 1.
Okay, makes
So
sense.
definitely there is no scope to combine all three models.
Okay, and Keshav is asking, can we assign more than 15 attributes?
I haven't tried, but definitely attributes are available. So that limitation part, I'm not pretty sure.
Okay, I mean 15 is enough, right?
Yeah, I think list shows hardly 15, max 15 are there. So
yeah, Gabriel is asking, and thanks to everyone who's asking question, really appreciate it. Gabriel is saying, what language is best to create model? I think any language works, isn't it?
There are many languages like
Yeah.
you can go with Python, C#, Node.js, even Java SDKs are available. Go is there. So it's pretty up to the developer, like what they are comfortable with. But my personal choice, like I had been .NET developer, so I would rather prefer to go with C#, and second would be Python.
Yeah, C# or Python. ML.NET is great too. I've had seen people delivering sessions around ML.NET, so that is cool. What do you think, Shweta? Now you work at Microsoft. I never knew that.
I'm working as a VDash right now, still not full timer, but yeah, it's been like close to 2 years now.
Wow, I just checked. I'm like, wow, Shweta works at Microsoft. I never knew it. So Shweta,
And the team I'm working, like it's like
Yeah.
pretty amazing. It's like only analysis, only data, and that's it. No, like it's not like I'm writing full-time C# code there sitting. It's not that case.
Sounds very exciting. So Shweta, someone has asked that what is the most challenging part with face recognition, or maybe you work with it, right? So what are some of the challenges you face, or work with the projects that real-time projects that you work? What are the challenges you face with face recognition?
One thing is like you should be very cautious while selecting the detection model specifically, and there are images because not every image will have everyone facing towards the camera. There are images where somebody is looking that side. Like in my demo, I showed a picture in which three faces are there. So 2, it identified correctly. Third one, although he was a boy, he's saying that, she's a girl. So like that, uncertainties are still there. And recent detection 3 model, which was released in, I guess, Feb 2021. So they'll keep working on improvising these models. Because still I can see few results are not up to the mark.
Yeah, definitely.
That is one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that is the one thing. And like it's like I said, you cannot combine multiple models. So definitely you need to play a trick that first I will try with this detection model. If it's not going well or I'm getting missing data or the error, then I will move on to the second detection model. So you have to make those strategies yourself being a developer.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, even the data that we give machine learning models to train, right? We humans are anyway biased, right? If I go ahead and search on internet, if I Bing and Google, if I do say two things, which was your favorite SEO search engine, if I search for beauty skin, it's very surprising, Shweta, it would only show me the lighter skin tone. It won't show me the dark skin tone.
That's true.
So we humans are anyway biased, and we give them the biased data, so we cannot expect machine learning model to perform best. Let's take final question. It's by Bhaskar. Can we use this service for voice recognition? Does cognitive service has voice recognition?
Right. So there are 5 different tricks. Maybe I can show. If you can share my screen, I can quickly show you. Is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, so when we talk about cognitive services, not just face API, there are 5 different tracks. So vision, speech, language, knowledge, as well as the search. So vision talks about the face API, emotions, and like OCR detection and all these things. So you need to see where it is falling. So for voice, I guess it is in. It must be in one of these tracks.
Yeah, I think for voice it may work for even
speech.
search.
Speech is there, right?
Speech, yeah. It's right
So
up there.
there we can go ahead and use it.
Perfect. That's great. Let's see what people are saying. Thank you, Shweta. Gabriel says, Kamal says, thanks for answering. Amit
Thank
says,
you.
just wow. I like the way he's writing boo.
But just one feedback, like, was it too technical? Because I tried my level best to keep it very lightweight.
Now you see, Gabriel says that was deep dive, whereas Ganesh says very simplicity.
Right.
So I think it depends, right, on how, if people have some technical background, right, they'll feel it. Wow, this was pretty good. Because as you said in the very beginning, right, you don't have to be a very hardcore developer. Even if you understand how to call APIs and work around, you don't have to be data science developer. You don't have to create machine learning model. Just create a service and just start using it. So I think it's a piece of a cake. And it shouldn't take long for people to get started. Andrew says, thanks, really good session. People have been enjoying. Yeah, there's one question from Anmol. Anmol Joshi. Naveen says, love the presentation, learned something today.
Oh, thank you.
So
I should keep doing such, I should keep taking such a real life example rather than customers' use cases.
Exactly, because when you go ahead and complete a project in maybe like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and whenever people come back and watch it, it's a complete thing that they can learn, right? So that really adds value. Anmol says, is Azure Face API free?
Like I said, standard and the free subscriptions are available, but there are limitations that you cannot go with more than these many number of calls per month.
Okay, there's some limitations, right? So
that you will get to know when you will create an instance of Face API. It was showing in the drop down that whether you would like to go for free tier or the standard S0.
Okay, makes sense. Bhaskar, thanks for the answer.
Thanks, Bhaskar.
Karanveer says, thank you, Shweta. Thanks, everyone. I see a lot of comments coming. The more you stay, Shweta, I think the questions will keep on pouring. What will happen?
And I would like to see so many thanks. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Shweta. That was absolutely amazing. Any final thing you want to plug in before we move to the next session?
Nothing much, but I would say like even I was enjoying today's the 5th day and most of the sessions were pretty good. And I hope to have a few more sessions along with you all together.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shweta, taking out your time from your work day. I know it's Friday, so definitely you want to go ahead and enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much, and we would love to have you back. Have a nice weekend ahead. Ta-ra, bye. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, with that, we now move to our next session. But before we do that, we still have about 5 to 6 minutes left. I know our next speaker, Rod, is waiting behind the scenes. But hey, Rod, hold on. We have 5 minutes before we bring you in. We got to do a winner announcement. So all this time we have been asking, okay, but even before we do winner announcement, I think it's good to go ahead and play a sponsor's video, right? Then you guys are going to stay back to watch the winners, right? That's a good time to play. So I'll be back in a minute. All right, I'm back, and now it's time to announce the winners for live comments. All this time, we have been asking everyone that whenever you go ahead and ask a question to a speaker or you share your thoughts in the comments, please use Cloud Summit hashtag. And everyone who's watching on LinkedIn, please move to azuresummit.live now, because the stream on LinkedIn is going to stop midway, because we can stream only 4 hours on LinkedIn, and we are going to cross over that during this session, and I don't want you to people miss the following session. So please visit azuresummit.live to continue watching the live sessions. The session will end in just about a couple of minutes. So let's see who's going to win it. For all those who have been using Cloud Summit hashtag, it's time to do a draw in the count of 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Who wins it? Cloud Summit Swag Kit. Oh. Let's see. Who's going to win it? All right, Azwar Khan, you win Cloud Summit Swag Kit. Take a screenshot of this, drop us an email at simon@azuresummit.live, and we'll make sure that we ship you the Swag Kit sometime next month. This month is very busy, so we'll ship you next month. And everyone who's watching on LinkedIn, please switch over here now, because the stream is going to end in